We're about to play you an interview we did with U.S. Ambassador to Israel, Mike Huckabee, 2 days ago in Israel. In general, it's never worth talking about the backstory behind an interview. It's kind of not the point. It makes it about the interviewer, not the person being interviewed. For one thing. For another, it's not that interesting most of the time. And for another, it's kind of off the record. You know, the other person hasn't consented to you telling the story. So in general, we don't do that. Who'd want to hear that? Let the interview speak for itself. But in this case, we want to tell you just a few things about how this interview came about because they are pretty interesting, revealing, and now weirdly relevant, apparently. So this interview with Mike Huckabee came about a couple of weeks ago on Twitter. One of our producers showed me. He said something to the effect of, "You're talking to Middle Eastern Christians, Tucker Carlson. Maybe you should talk to me. Why don't you come do an interview?" And I paused for a minute. I've thought in the past about trying to interview Mike Huckabee, whom I've known for over 30 years and worked adjacent to at Fox. And I had mixed feelings about it, mostly because it's hard if you're me to interview Mike Huckabee because of just the personal affect. Mike Huckabee is jovial, comes off as friendly. He's a grandfather. When annoyed, I can be nasty in interviews. And so it takes a lot of self-control to interview someone like Mike Huckabee, not because I hate him, but because it's hard to ask him tough questions and not come off as a jerk, which I often am. So, but I thought in this case, yeah, I should definitely do this for a bunch of different reasons. Mainly, the United States is moving toward a big war, a real war with Iran, a regime change war. The biggest war we've had since the invasion of Iraq in the spring of 2003. And Israel is driving that. We are doing this at the behest, at the demand of the Israeli Prime Minister Benjamin Netanyahu. So it seems like now is the time for more Americans to understand the dynamic between the U.S. and Israel and to call attention to that. And for another, Huckabee's behavior in the last year in Jerusalem as the ambassador has been very, very striking. He famously had a meeting with the most damaging spy in American history. And why did you do that?
Jonathan Pollard.
He hadn't been asked by anybody up until 2 days ago, why did you do that? So I wanted to be able to ask him that. And so we accepted and then began the usual negotiations about when and where the interview would take place. And we were constrained because we weren't expecting this. We wanted to do it quickly, but we had tons of travel. So we threw them a date, them being the American embassy. We can do it on this date. And they were very accommodating. And then the question became, well, where do we do it? And maybe a Christian holy site. We said, we've got to get in and out really quick, got to be back to do a bunch of other interviews, but we've got this time frame. They said, well, why don't you do it at the U.S. Embassy? Or maybe we said that. Great, U.S. Embassy. So the U.S. Embassy is about an hour, 55 minutes from the big airport in Israel, Ben Gurion. So we said, okay, what about security? Now, at this time, the Israeli government, the prime minister included, were attacking me in this show. Netanyahu suggested I was a Nazi, for example. And so we thought, how about security? Obviously. Not because the Israeli government necessarily would do something bad, because there are a lot of people in Israel who think, because they've been told, that I'm an anti-Semite or a Nazi or want to kill Jews. It's kind of crazy overstatement. All untrue, obviously, but it would be good to have security. And I should say, having done interviews on 6 out of 7 continents over 35 years, I'm not very security conscious at all, never really feel uncomfortable, but this seemed like a prudent thing to do. So we were told by the embassy spokesman, no, we're not going to provide security. And so we said, okay, I guess we'll get private security. But could we get someone from the embassy to ride in the car with us from the airport to the interview? And we were told, no. Could we get what they call a control officer, just an American, with us, in an official capacity as an embassy employee with us? No, quote, for legal reasons, we can't do that. So I thought, well, that's very strange. And then they said, but instead, we're turning you over to the Ministry for Foreign Affairs, MFA, and they're going to arrange everything in Israel. Well, this was within 24 hours of the Deputy Foreign Minister, Sharon Haskell, releasing a video calling me an anti-Semite and an enemy of Israel. This was the person who the embassy was telling us was going to handle all of our travel. So it was at this point that I just called. I called the spokesman for the U.S. Embassy in Israel, and I said, okay, I'm an American citizen responding to an invitation from the American ambassador to Israel. And by the way, I'm the son of a U.S. ambassador, so I have some sense, I'm not an expert, obviously, but I have some sense of how this works. And I think that the U.S. ambassador has discretion to send somebody from his office to the airport to accompany someone in. I think that's right. And if it's not right, tell me what law you're talking about, what legal reason you're talking about that would prevent that. And now you're sending me over to a government official who's been calling me a Nazi? That's the person in charge of getting us to the embassy? Like, what is going on here? And the embassy spokesman, who's totally nice, said, well, this was the decision of someone called David Brownstein. He's the DCM, the number 2 guy in the embassy. And I said, well, put him on a text exchange. Like, what is going on here? And so Brownstein got on and didn't answer the question, but basically said, well, okay, let's just do the interview at the airport in the diplomatic reception area at the airport. Okay, I said, we're going to be flying in from Europe, and we had to be in and out really quickly. So at great expense, we chartered a plane, which I never do because I'm cheap. But we did. And so then I said to them, okay, I want to send you the flight information, tail number, flight number, route, and I want you to pass that on to the Israeli military just so, you know, they don't mistake us for an Iranian drone or something. I mean, not to be paranoid, but again, this is probably the most violent country in the world, Israel. Is there a country in the world where a higher percentage of the population has held a gun or shot someone? I mean, I don't know the answer, but this is a country famously waging a 7-front war with all of its neighbors, you know, so this is also the country that bombed the...
This is one of the only moments where I will ever say this in my life where I would offer critical support to Tucker Carlson against the only entity that is more fascistic and more violent, well, definitely more violent, but definitely more fascistic than Tucker Carlson, which is the nation state of Israel. I see a lot of people talking about all the shit that the American government is saying, all the shit that the Israeli government is saying about Tucker Carlson and like agreeing with them, except he's 100% on the money here and 100% correct when he's talking about Israel.
The USS Liberty, knowing, we know this from NSA intercepts, that it was an American ship. So don't, you know, just send the military our flight information and, you know, we can all just sort of know it's on the record and we can all calm down a little bit. No, they said. The U.S. Embassy said, no, this is, your flight is not a matter of concern to the Israeli military. I said, okay, now you're making me uncomfortable. Isn't the airspace of Israel the purview of the Israeli military? Aren't they in charge of maintaining the integrity of their airspace? When you fly over the country of Israel or any country, its military keeps track of you because that's their job. So why wouldn't you send our flight information to the Israeli military? You're making me nervous. I sent this exchange. I took a screenshot of it and sent it to a bunch of people, including in the U.S. government, because I'm not a paranoid person and I'm not a jumpy person. I said, is this weird behavior? Yeah, it's really weird behavior. All of them said that. So I got pretty aggressive and just said, look, you got to do this. Okay. And they, to their credit, got back to us and said, yes, we will do that. But I just thought that was completely bizarre and menacing, by the way. Now, at the same time, and I think this is relevant, certainly it goes to motive, I was attempting to set up a meeting, as I have been for the past 3 months, with the Prime Minister of Israel, Benjamin Netanyahu, who I've dealt with a lot in the past, and who denounced me as a Nazi in public, a member of the woke Reich. And why was I trying to do that? Not an interview. I knew he wouldn't sit for an interview, but I wanted just to meet with him in person. One, to show that I'm willing to go to Israel. I don't hate Israel as a country. But two, just to say directly to him, this is bad. This should be de-escalated. This kind of rhetoric doesn't help anybody. Calling me specifically, a Nazi and an anti-Semite when you know that I'm not. By the way, if I was, I would just admit it. I've said many times I think anti-Semitism is immoral. It's against my religion, just as hating any group on the basis of their bloodline is immoral. So the new year is here, but that does not mean you've got to overhaul your whole life.
What the fuck?
Despite claims that I finally your Christians were a friend of mine in California who knew him and who were in regular contact with him. In fact, I went to go see some of those people directly. Please, can you help me get a sit down for 5 minutes with Benjamin Netanyahu? And I probably called or met with 6, 7, 8, maybe more people on this question. People in official capacities, people in the Israeli government. I know a number of people in the Israeli government, people in Israel, a friend of mine in California who knows him. I mean, I really, really tried. And I did so for 2 reasons. One, because there was a threat to my family. The Israeli government and Netanyahu himself tried to punish 2 members of my family. I won't be more specific, but actually punish 2 members of my family because he has said in public many times, believes in blood guilt, Amalek. You know, when someone commits a crime against you, you punish not.
Dude, why the fuck do you guys want me to skip this? You're like, get to the interview. No, I want to fucking know. I want to know what took place about his like detainment and shit. Okay, calm down.
Just him, but his family, his bloodline. There's no idea that's less Western than that, more anti-Christian than that. Christians reject that. Netanyahu doesn't. That's why he's talking about Amalek. And he was going after my family, literally. So I felt very threatened by that. But moreover, I think it's bad for my country to have people using that kind of language. Round them up, bring them to the camps, gas chambers, Nazis, anti.
Yeah. That language is what's scary for our country. Not the direct application of said language in the direction of migrants. Tucker loves that shit. He just hates it when someone is, falsely calling him that. Only falsely in this unique instance where he's correctly interpreting Israel's actions as unjustifiable.
Semitism, it scares the heck out of people. It makes people crazy and hysterical. And certainly in my case, none of that is true. I hate collective punishment. I hate attacking people on the basis of their bloodline. I hate anti-Semitism and anti-white racism and all of this, or any kind of racism, period. And I've said that a lot. So using that kind of language against someone who is not fundamentally your enemy, who just, in my case, I want Christians in areas controlled by Israel to be treated with dignity, to have rights. And I don't want the U.S. government involved in a war, a regime change war with Iran. Those are my priorities, and I've said them out loud.
He's like, yeah, not even the Muslims, just the Christians.
But I have no secret agenda. So to attack me as a Nazi for saying that suggests a total unwillingness to compromise. Anyone who doesn't agree with us 100% must be destroyed. His family must be attacked, my family, and must be written off as a Nazi. Well, when you do that, it makes people hysterical. It increases the temperature to a point that, someone's going to get hurt if you keep talking that way. And it's just bad. It's bad for the United States. It's bad for the world. So I wanted to deliver that message. I finally wound up talking to a guy called Yoram Hazony, who is an Israeli who famously organizes the American National Conservatism conferences. And I said to him, look, you're having a National Conservatism conference in Jerusalem this summer. You asked me to speak at the first National Conservatism conference in the United States, and I did. Obviously, I believe in national conservatism, America first. I think every nation should put its own people first. That's why you have governments. And I would like to speak at this one. And moreover, I would like you to ask your friend Benjamin Netanyahu to meet with me. And we had this sort of long back and forth, and it was, no, you cannot speak at the National Conservatism Conference because you're an anti-Semite. No, I'm not, I said. Yes, you are, he said. And I said, well, I really would like to speak to Bibi to kind of de-escalate this. And he said, it would not be in his political interest to meet with you. That's almost verbatim what he said. Therefore, no. So then I realized, you're dealing with people who are unreasonable, who are inflexible, who are in fact fanatical. And then add to that, of course.
I think it's pretty nutty that a fucking random podcaster is like, hey, Adolf Hitler, I just want to have one conversation with you. Okay. Like every part of this story is so insane to me. And yet, because it's the United States of America and like podcasters become the FBI director, it kind of doesn't, podcasting is the highest thing you can be. A podcaster is the highest thing you can be. And Benjamin Netanyahu has talked to podcasters before, like the Nelk Boys. So while the entire story is completely fucking psychotic, I guess it makes sense that a podcaster would be asking for this experience.
That my tax dollars are paying them. It was all pretty distressing. So that was the backdrop behind our very brief and highly intense trip to Israel. So we show up on Wednesday, fly in from Europe, again at great expense, and show up at the diplomatic terminal at Ben Gurion Airport where this interview is going to take place, which is bizarre in itself. A filthy building. The windows are so dirty in the terminal you can't see out them barely. There's like exposed drywall. The whole thing is depressing and grim. There's litter outside. Like, what is this? This is the diplomatic terminal in Israel. I thought that was very strange. Having been in a lot of diplomatic terminals, I've never seen a rattier one. We go in and Huckabee's there. And of course, he's totally friendly, as he always is. Very, very friendly guy. And cheerful, and we sort of chat, and the whole place is filled with these guys in T-shirts, thuggish-looking guys in T-shirts who are some kind of security. So we do the interview. You're about to watch it. It's very long, at 2.5 hours-ish, and I try my hardest to be friendly. I think I kind of succeeded. You can judge for yourself. But I really got the sense, and again, you can decide as you watch it, that Huckabee was not able to answer any of the questions, but also not really in charge. You really got the feeling of a guy sort of trying his best to repeat the talking points, but very constrained, like unable to say certain things. Not because those things might harm the interests of the U.S. government. He was happy to attack, for example, the U.S. military and say they're more brutal than the Israeli military. Okay. But unwilling to say certain things because they might reflect poorly on the Israeli government. And you sort of thinking about this for a second, you're like, wait, you're the U.S. ambassador. You're our representative to a foreign country. Why is your red line criticism of that country? Shouldn't you be representing us? And it was very obvious he was representing the Israelis. Obvious. And again, you can judge for yourself. But anyway, so we do this interview. It was cordial. And at the end, we're set to fly out. We have a time. We have to get out. And the plane is sitting right outside. And we're ready to go. And for some reason, the Israelis still have our passports. There are 5 of us there. And 4 of us are flying out on this plane. One's flying out commercial with our gear. So my business partner and I, sort of standing there, we've never left the airport, never went anywhere. But our 2 producers have spent the night before in Tel Aviv. And they're called into rooms and given the 3rd degree. Now, keep in mind, they're about to get on a plane and leave. In fact, we're late. We have to get out of there. We have a slot to get out. And security, whoever this is, won't let them go. So I don't really know what's going on at this point. I'm like, where are our guys? We got to get out of here. So one of them comes out and he says, that was the weirdest experience in my life. They asked me questions about the interview. Who did you speak to? Keep in mind, this was like 8 feet from where we did the interview. Well, the U.S. ambassador. I'm like, Huckabee, what did you talk about? Why did you ask those questions? Was it a hostile interview? And of course, everything in the diplomatic terminal is taped. Everything in Israel is taped. It's a police state. It's a surveillance state, obviously. You go to Israel, they put software on your phone. Everybody knows this. Okay, they're constantly spying on you more than probably any other country. And so they know the answers to these questions. But they're asking my producer, like,
I just don't understand, like, who in their right mind would ever go to fucking Israel? Like, it just doesn't make any sense. Scrub back. No, dude, come on. It's 2 hours and 30 fucking minutes. Okay, stop. Also, half of the shit that he's complaining about is already happening in America as well. And he loves it when it's happening in America.
Where do you work? How many people work there? Do you go to the office? Where is the office? What are their names? they're doing like an intel op and humiliation exercise on my producer. This isn't security. We're leaving right now. And they're holding his passport. The interrogator is holding the passport in his hand as he's asking these questions. So he's telling me this. And I said, this is the most outrageous thing I've ever heard. Huckabee's gone by this point. You're an American citizen who's just had a conversation with the U.S. ambassador, and some thug is demanding details of that conversation? And I hope you didn't answer. And he's like, no, I didn't. I don't know what to say. Meanwhile, our last guy, the youngest man who was traveling with us, our last producer, is still in a room being questioned. So I pull over one of the guys and said, we got to get out of here. So I don't know what this is about. It's outrageous.
I've hated Tucker Carlson for many, many years at this point. I've said that he is one of the most cancerous entities in American politics. And I never could have ever imagined in my entire fucking life where I would, in a million years, I never thought that I would see Tucker Carlson as a sympathetic figure in any equation. Okay? So congratulations to Israel. I mean, he is still evil. Okay? He's insincere. He's evil. He's the son of agents of the CIA. Of an agent of the CIA. His dad is responsible for Voice of America, right? He says it here. I mean, he is deeply tapped with the Trump administration. I do think ultimately that he would love to do Israel in America for what he calls legacy Americans. I think he finally got to you. He's not sympathetic. No, there is. This is like when pedophilia hunters are like unsavory individuals themselves, right? But why did they do that? Why do they go out and like hunt pedophiles, even though they're also fucking weirdos? They do that because like that's the ultimate evil, right? In the eyes of many people, that's the ultimate evil. And in this circumstance, that's what Tucker Carlson is doing. He's like the pedo hunter. Except, unlike with pedo hunters, as much as there is support that you can accrue for, being anti-Israel, a lot of you don't understand the downsides of being anti-Israel. I don't talk about it too much. You obviously are aware of some of it. Right? You see some of it in public with like the ADL stuff, CIJA demanding I'm not allowed to enter the state of Canada, the nation state of Canada. Stuff like that is every day. But there are a lot of fucking downsides. There are a lot of downsides that I will never discuss that comes along with it. Okay? You're fine, Hasan. You're going to be okay in IA. In any case, for that reason, all I'm saying is, especially if you're a person with like, oh, inshallah. Oh, thank you. IA means inshallah. Okay, I didn't know that. Internal audit. Okay. The point is, Israel is so cancerous that it makes, and its allies are so flagrant, so ruthless, so brutal, that it makes anyone opposing them look better by design. And Tucker Carlson is one of those people.
And, there's nothing I can do about this point, but we got to go. And this woman comes up to me and says, look, let's just go. We're going to bring you to the plane and he'll come later. I said, no, it's my producer. He's being interrogated, asked totally.
Same with America? No, America doesn't have the same intensity against its naysayers. And the reason why I say that is because like America doesn't operate like a small nation. Israel also has that like small bean reasoning for why they go so hard. America is the most powerful nation on the planet. So if you're an American citizen and a dissident of the United States of America, like I am, Tucker is not, I actually am, right? Obviously, I still get, for the time being at least, I get to travel wherever I want to. Like, at most I've been detained, right, by Customs and Border Patrol, had my global entry taken from me, stuff like that. Those are setbacks. They're annoying, but it's not the end of the world for the time being, of course. I would not be able to enter the nation state of Israel. Okay? There's just no world where I would be able to go to Israel. I don't want to go to Israel anyway, but there is not, like, I am perceived as a much larger threat to the state of Israel than I am to the United States of America, because the United States of America is immensely powerful. Do you understand? Your Jersey boy swag will overtake everything once you land. I swear to God. Yeah. It's also worth saying you were likely detained. No, I was literally detained in the United States of America for my criticism of Israel. America won't detain you for your criticism of America. America would rather detain you and deport you if they can. Because, like, Mahmoud Khalil, he can be as critical as he wants about America. Green card holder, no one bats an eye. Mahmoud Khalil is critical of Israel. All of a sudden, that becomes a massive problem. He has to be deported. We have to take away his green card. Like, that's how it is. It seems like Jewish dissidents in Israel can move freely, though. No, that's also not true. There are Israeli Jews living in Israel that are anti-Zionist, and they suffer repercussions. However, if you are Jewish and an anti-Zionist and you want to go to Israel, it depends on how much clout you have. There are plenty of people who are anti-Zionist Jews from the United States of America, from all different parts of the world, that have tried to go to Israel to at least, like, get into the West Bank and have been stopped and deported. Wow, so nuanced. What is this? Kick nuts. Time to kick some nuts. Yeah, if you're like a normie and you're an anti-Zionist, you're probably fine. But if you're Norm Finkelstein, they don't let you in. Norm Finkelstein was denied entry into the state of Israel.
Over the top, fully inappropriate questions that have nothing to do with security at all. Pull up your website, show us your text exchanges with other people on your staff. What are your politics like? And again, what did you say to the U.S. ambassador, and what did he say back to you? Those are not relevant questions if you're trying to keep your country secure. Those are intel questions. And they're over the top. And I said, I want this guy out now. Let's go. We got to go. And they said, no, just leave him here. We'll bring him to the plane later. Twice they told me that. Just leave your guy behind. No, I don't think so. So I was enraged by this. Get on the plane. We get a text from a reporter who somehow knew that this had happened. I have no idea how. I had no interest in publicizing it, actually. There was, a long trail that showed that the U.S. Embassy had been coordinating against us in a public relations battle before we even got there. They were leaking that we demanded to do it at the airport because we were afraid to go into Israel. We're cowards. Okay, we're cowards. Right. And so I just said to the reporter by text, they pulled my guys into a room, interrogating them. This is outrageous, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera. The interesting thing is I never heard from Huckabee or anybody to this moment from the U.S. Embassy about what security did to my producers. They didn't ask us. And instead, Huckabee went out and called me a liar. So it raises, again, the question, who exactly is Huckabee working for? We're American citizens in a foreign country. He's our ambassador. He represents our country. We pay his salary, but he's taking the side of the foreign government without even calling to say, hey, what happened to you at the airport? Did you get hassled? Did your guys get hassled? No. He just immediately repeats their lies without even consulting us. So, like, what are we looking at here? We're looking at the reality, which is if you're an American in Israel, you can be certain that your government will take the side of the Israeli government and not your side. And really, is that so different from the experience of Americans in the United States? Can you be sure that your government will take your side over the Israeli government? No, of course not. They will always take the Israeli government side over yours. And that's the core problem. Even if you support a war with Iran, I think the most pressing issue for Americans is that we kill the Ayatollah or whatever. You still have a fair expectation that your government, because it is yours, you pay for it, it exists to serve you, and for no other reason, you have an expectation that your government will take your side against a foreign government. But the daily lived reality, the obvious truth, visible to every single American, is that's the opposite of reality. In fact, if you criticize Israel in your country, your government will work to censor you. If there's a standoff between you and Bibi, you know whose side your government's going to take, Bibi's side. That is not sustainable. That is too humiliating. It's too clearly an inversion of the natural order. Your government exists for you, not for a foreign government. But that's not how we live in this country or in Israel. So that's what we learned. And one last thing. The Israelis apparently went, probably with the help of Mike Huckabee, went to the surveillance tape inside the diplomatic terminal and pulled some clip, and of course getting all their little bots online to promote it, of me with my arm around somebody to show that actually I'm lying about what happened. That person was our driver who drove us from the plane to the terminal, a short drive. Very nice guy, good guy, Israeli guy. And right when we arrived, and he said, "Can I get a picture?" Of course. He's a nice man. So I just put my arm around him and took a picture. That's what that is. That was before the interview. It was before our producers were hassled by the thugs and asked ridiculous questions. It was before any of this happened. So that's just another installment of the propaganda war. Thought we'd give you the backstory on that. People seem to be more inflamed, not just emotionally, but physically.
To each other and not about each other. And I appreciate very much your coming here to...
Of course, and I'm only staying a couple hours, unfortunately, because I kind of shoehorned this in, but I hope that I'll be back soon, and I hope that I can come back soon, because I actually like, despite what you may hear, I actually like the country. I've been here a lot, and there are a lot of things I like.
This was the clip. I think Tucker Carlson's lying. Yeah, there's... I suspect they received the standard questioning that anyone traveling to and from Israel gets. Is the kind of questioning that can seem intimidating for first-time travelers, but Tucker is very, very well traveled. But I also think it's important to be consistent about what we consider exculpatory evidence, and a 20-second clip isn't sufficient. Breaking via Ollie London TV, who obtained exclusive footage of Tucker Carlson's detainment at Israel's airport. And by detained, I mean smiling and posing with a fan, thoughts and prayers. So this is the clip that he was talking about that made him... This is the clip that the Israeli government is using to say, like, oh, they didn't do any sort of, like, fuck shit to the producers or anything like that. Would you ever go to Israel? Fuck no. Yeah, I'll go to Palestine. There are some really, really powerful moments from this interview. We'll start here, and then we'll go to some of the high notes in a second.
Love about it, and I want to talk to people in it for like a week.
Only 38,000 likes in 7 hours? Wait, what? What are you talking about? This is 500,000 views in 7 hours. It is absolutely not being suppressed.
Good, and get a better sense of it. So I want to ask you, everyone I've talked to in preparation for this has said the same thing. Jonathan Pollard, I'm just going to throw the name to you and have you explain.
No, I'm glad you asked. You know, interestingly, there's been a lot of things about it. You're the first person who has asked me about it, which I find amazing. So I'm glad you did.
Really?
Yeah, the very first
Good.
person.
Well, it's better to hear it.
Sure. I met Jonathan Pollard 2 times. Once I was making a speech in Jerusalem. This has been a few years ago. His wife was still alive at the time, and he was there. And someone introduced me to him and his wife. I said hello to them. That was it. Hi. Nice to meet Esther, his wife, and that was it. I went and made my speech, and I left. Later, his wife passed away here in Israel, and I sent him a note and just said, I'm sorry to hear about your wife. I remember meeting her at the hotel, and sorry to hear it. He then asked, could he come and see me? He wanted to come and thank me for being kind to him. He came to the embassy. I think we met for maybe 30 minutes. We had a nice, pleasant visit. The funny thing was the New York Times reported that it was a secret meeting. Tucker, if you've ever been to the U.S. Embassy, you would know there's no such thing as a secret meeting at the U.S. Embassy.
Sure.
There are cameras everywhere. You walk through Marines, you walk through security, you walk through the front office, and there's a dozen or more people that are going to check you out when you come. And before you get there, you're going to have to give us your passport information. You're going to have to be vetted and screened and all of this stuff. So the idea that it was secret was ludicrous. The whole idea is, look, Jonathan Pollard did something that was terribly wrong. He sold secrets. He shouldn't have done it. He was sentenced to 30 years in prison and spent 30, actually was, I think he was sentenced to maybe more than 30 years, but he spent 30 years in prison. Most people convicted of something similar, which was one count, I believe, would have spent 2 to 4, but he spent 30. I don't have a problem with him spending 30 because I think what he did was despicable. I'm not defending anything about what he did. But even people like the former director of the CIA, a number of other senators on the Senate Foreign Relations of the Senate Intel Committee said that he should be allowed to leave and move to Israel if he wanted to. So it, to me, was not as big a deal that I had this basically courtesy meeting. He wanted to thank me for being nice to him when his wife died. That's pretty much the story.
You advocated for his release when you ran for, I remember it, in 2011, long before he had served 30 years. And I agree with you that there are a lot of people languishing in prison, in our country and in this country, and many countries, for longer periods than they deserve. And I think it's a Christian impulse to.
Yeah, no, Tucker is a real Christian, as we know. He famously is very woke.
To want to see them free. But this was the greatest traitor in modern American history who sold our battle plans against the Soviet Union, our main enemy in the Cold War, to the Israeli government, which according to our Reagan CIA director, Bill Casey, then gave them to the Soviet Union. So this was the most profound betrayal of the United States in my lifetime. Why advocate for that guy's release before he serves his full sentence?
If that were the case in 2011, it would have been because I had a number of friends that suggested that he had more than served time, and he didn't want to live in the U.S. anymore. He wanted to live in Israel. And but my association with him, again, I had never met him until I met him in Jerusalem at a hotel. That was the first time I had ever encountered him.
I'm friends with 1 million bad people, or I've talked to 1 million bad people.
I'm sitting here with you. I mean, come on.
I mean, Jesus ain't with tax collectors. So trust me, do not judge people who are friends or know or enjoy the company of immoral people, because it's not an endorsement of their immoral behavior. Pollard is different. I think once you become U.S. ambassador, the representative of the President of the United States in the United States of America in a foreign country, and then you invite not only the most damaging betrayer in our lifetimes, but also a guy who continues to advocate for betrayal. So he gave an interview, as I know you know, in 2021 to Israeli media, in which he said, I would encourage Jewish Americans with security clearances to spy for Mossad against their own country, the United States, because, and I'm pretty much quoting him, all Jews should have dual loyalty. That's not repentance. That's not someone who feels bad.
He did say that. Jonathan Pollard literally said that, which is fucking crazy.
Bad about what he did. That's someone who's encouraging American Jews to betray their country. That's pretty heavy, don't you think?
Oh, I do. And I disagree with that wholeheartedly. I think, let's remember, it was President Trump who probably facilitated his departure. And I'm certainly supportive of President Trump. I think you are. And
Pollard's not. He called him a madman after your meeting.
That's why I say Pollard is not, for me, the real issue. It was the fact that he did something that was despicable. I'm not denying that. Of course he did. And he paid dearly for it, 30 years in prison, and he should have. That's what he should have done. There's no question about that.
Why meet with him in the U.S. Embassy? Your colleagues said they were shocked. They said...
Who were the colleagues that said they were shocked?
Quoted on Background in the New York Times. I think the meeting was in August. This could all be fake. That's why I'm asking you.
Well, the same New York Times said it was a secret meeting. And I'm telling you, there's no such thing as a secret meeting in the U.S. Embassy.
Do you see why the U.S. ambassador hosting a convicted betrayer of his own country who's encouraging Americans to continue to betray their country would seem shocking?
Well, I would say that it wasn't that you make it sound like I'm hosting a meeting. I simply met with him. I meet with people all the time.
Some can just walk in without a...
No, they have to have an appointment. Of course they do.
Oh, so it is hosting him then, I think.
Well, I don't know if it was hosting, but it was certainly, he was able to come to the U.S. Embassy to have a meeting at his request. I did.
By the way, the entire Epstein stuff is literally like being homies with the most unsavory individuals. So yeah, I do think it kind of like it depends on like what the interaction is and what the involvement is. But if it walks like a duck and it quacks like a duck, it's probably a duck, right? Like I'm sure there were people that have been in the vicinity of Jeffrey Epstein in the past that were very critical of him or hated him or whatever the fuck, right? And the same goes for Jonathan Pollard. It's just you're Mike Huckabee. You know, you invited him. You like him. You agree with him. You are one of the most insane ultra-Zionists out there.
And frankly, I don't regret it. I met with a lot of people over the course of the time I've been here, and we'll meet with a lot more. That's it.
So if you spend the evening, there have been Americans in prison in Israel. There have also been, and there continue to be, dozens and dozens and dozens of sex.
Huckabee, intelligence asset, yes. Chatter, he's literally the U.S. ambassador to Israel. Or more like the Israeli ambassador to the United States. Like, there is no ambassador out there that's not an asset. They're a part of the State Department, which literally is a functioning arm of the CIA, more like the pleasant arm of the CIA. Okay, that was a joke, right? Holy shit, I have no idea how that slipped me. I feel like U.S. ambassador to Israel is redundant. Yeah. Or Israel ambassador to the U.S.
Offenders, accused sex offenders from the United States who fled to Israel, including one recently, an Israeli government official who was caught trying to molest a 15-year-old girl. And
True. This has happened.
Fled to Israel.
In Nevada.
Is not going back.
Ironic because it was his OPSEC too. Benjamin Netanyahu's like cybersecurity official got caught by the American federal authorities trying to hook up with a 15-year-old, trying to do statutory rape.
The United States to stand charges for attempted molestation of a child. Have you advocated for the Israeli government to return him to the United States?
I'm not familiar with that case.
Oh!
It has not come to us at the embassy.
Cap, get the fuck out of here. You're not familiar with that case. The first time that case hit, no, I'll take it back. When the guy literally told the law enforcement officers that arrested him that he was Israeli, that's when Mike Huckabee was like, I sense a disturbance in the force. One of my favorite people on the planet, one of my favorite molesters is under threat. I must save him. I must save him.
So I'm not aware. Is this the person in Nevada?
That is correct.
Okay, I
in
heard
Clark
about
County,
it.
I would imagine so.
Yeah, I heard about it, but I heard about it through open source media. It was never something that was presented to us, but I would have no problem with him being extradited back to the U.S.
You're the president's and our country's representative in the state of Israel, so I think it would fall to you to advocate with your friend, the prime minister, to say, wait a second, we have a very close relationship. We're obviously the single largest source of outside funding for this country. How can you take an accused child molester and shield him from American justice, send him back to the United States? Have you ever had that conversation?
To be fair, Mike Huckabee might be the only guy on the planet that could turn around to Tucker Carlson and say, well, Tucker, I've actually tried to stop American child molesters from going to prison as well. Not just Israeli ones. I'm a prison abolitionist for one issue, and that's the molestation of children. Okay? He is the only guy, I mean, not the only guy, but he's one of the few guys who could literally turn around and be like, no, it's just, I'm a fan of child molestation, and therefore I want to make sure the child molesters are allowed to be roaming free. Come on now, Tucker. Age is nothing but a number, you know? That's what it is. That's all it is.
No, because the prime minister would not be the proper person
That may be
in
right.
Israel.
Pardon my ignorance. But
that would deal with an extradition. It would go through their court system. And so the prime minister is separate, very similar to what we have in the U.S., where there is a separation of powers. So it would go through something other than the prime minister.
have you advocated to the courts, to judges, to anybody in the Israeli justice system?
There has never been a request for me to engage in that. I would be happy to do it if the
Oh, the joke I'm making is about the Duggars. Yeah, one of the most famous cases of being caught with, almost a terabyte worth of child sexual abuse material. Huckabee stood by the Duggar family. Good people make mistakes. I don't think we should be punishing people for that kind of thing.
White House sent a message to me. I do work for the president. I serve at his pleasure. If anyone at the White House were to say to me, would you please go and make a case for it? But probably if that were to happen, it wouldn't come through the embassy as much as it would likely come from the Department of Justice at the U.S. in D.C. They would make the request. They might involve us, but they very likely would not.
Does it seem strange to you that people accused of child molestation in the United States are allowed to have refuge within the borders of our closest ally?
Well, Tucker, I think they should just stay in Arkansas. Have you thought about that? I've been long petitioning the American government to let Arkansas roam free, unshackled, unburdened by the restrictive nature of age of consent laws. As a matter of fact, my daughter, you might know her, Sarah Huckabee Sanders, played a formative role in tackling one of the aspects of the nanny state by allowing child labor to no longer be illegal. That's right. That's a real, look it up. That's a real thing. My daughter did that. She signed that into law. And guess what? I want pedophiles and children to roam free in Arkansas. Otherwise, who are the pedophiles going to fuck, Tucker? That's right.
That doesn't make sense to me.
Well, I would say that
If you've molested an American child, shouldn't you be required to stand justice?
It's an allegation. Let's be clear. One of the things about our system of jurisprudence, you're innocent until you're proven guilty beyond a reasonable doubt. So if the charges are there, should he be extradited? I would say so.
The charges are there.
Yeah. Okay. So they should be. But that's a Justice Department decision, and they're the ones who should be pursuing it. To my knowledge, they haven't. They certainly haven't engaged the U.S. Embassy over it.
Why would the Israeli...
That's crazy that this interview, literally like 5 minutes in, and he's already out here defending Israeli pedophiles. Bro, it is the toughest job on the planet. You have to be uniquely evil to have to defend Israel, but it really is the toughest job on the planet. It's like, oh, wow, Israel. So you're the U.S. ambassador to Israel. What do you think about this Israeli pedophile that tried to molest a 15-year-old American girl and was caught and then immediately escaped to the beautiful state of Israel? What do you think about that? He's like, well, now, you see now, sometimes temptation rises in my loins.
government harbor...
Also, we went from, I haven't heard of it, to... well, you see, maybe he's innocent after all. It's fucking crazy.
Fugitives from justice in the United States.
I'm not sure that...
There are dozens and dozens and dozens. And in fact, there's an Israeli group that keeps track of them that is dedicated, Jewish Israeli group dedicated to combating the molestation of children, and keeps a long list. And you can look it up. And I
hope you're not saying that you think the Israelis support the molestation of children.
Obviously, I'm not saying that.
Okay,
I'm saying that the Israeli government allows shields accused child molesters from justice in the United States.
I'm not sure I could say that that's something that is provable. I don't know. But I am not aware.
Well, you see, Michael, the entire reason for why there are Israeli Jewish organizations that specifically try to combat this thing is because it does happen a lot. So much so that even the American media that would normally obviously, shy away from criticizing the state of Israel has written extensively about how Israel is seen as a pedophile safe haven of sorts. That's not my assessment. I would never say such unkind words about the most beautiful nation state on the planet, Israel. Am Israel high? Am Israel high? Am Israel high? Please don't, hopefully my internet doesn't go out. But that's not my statement on the matter. Oh, that's CBS News. Now, this is pre-Barry Weiss. How Jewish American pedophiles hide from justice in Israel. A widespread problem. Just, that's Barry Weiss, currently Barry Weiss's own outlet. KD coming in with drones as we speak. So it's just, Hasan clipped this. It's gone next Tuesday. Nah.
Aware that the Israeli government is shielding people.
You obviously want to sleep well and
oh, come on, man. This guy fucking slammed ads everywhere.
And I've written it down, but of course my handwriting is so terrible I can't read it. But yes, he is an Israeli, I believe, cybersecurity official who was at a conference in Las Vegas last year and was caught up in a...
You see, Tucker, there it is. He was actually trying to penetrate the cybersecurity of America. He was pen testing, Tucker. He was trying to see if Americans will stop Israeli molestation from taking place on U.S. soil. And his job is done, I think. No reason to convict. He was at a hackers conference seeing if he could do a penetration test. What you and I know to call a white hat pedophile. That's what he was. You see. Oh, that's a good one too. Wait. Kremlo says, Tucker, what happens in Vegas mean nothing to you? I thought we had an arrangement. I thought everyone around the world knew that what happens in Vegas stays in Vegas.
Sting.
I'm getting increasingly more Kevin Spacey with it for some reason.
Designed to catch people soliciting sex from children. He was one of a number of people arrested for this. He was arraigned and charged. And then 2 days later, he fled to Israel.
Tucker, I'll have you know, it brings me no joy to say this, but have you considered that the man you're talking about used to be a child at one point? That's right, Tucker. He was a child too. Yeah, bet you never considered that, you anti-Semite.
Israel, and did his first hearing by Zoom. He was allowed for some reason to leave for a foreign country, having already been charged for a attempted molestation of a child. And he remains here now. And there have been many news stories about this. And I just wonder if you would ask the Israeli government
Tucker,
to send...
you don't believe we're all children under God? We're all a child of God?
Put him on a plane and send him back to face justice for attempting to molest an American child. It doesn't seem complicated.
No, I wouldn't mind doing that, but...
What is this loud and hard F? What?
Shielding people.
You obviously want to sleep well and...
Oh, come on, man. This guy fucking slammed ads everywhere.
And I've written it down.
Oh, he said the F... It sounded like he said the F slur. Damn.
I want to find out if the Justice Department of the U.S. has already sought to extradite him. Is there anything in process? I don't know.
Why wouldn't they seek to extradite him?
I have no idea. That's a question for the Justice Department.
I have many questions for the Justice Department, like why are millions of Epstein files still classified? Why do you think that is?
I have no idea. I haven't kept up with that. I've never met the man. I don't know him.
You haven't kept up with the Epstein disclosure?
I mean, only from a distance. I'm 6,000 miles away from D.C. these days, and
Yeah, but you're very close in proximity to a country that is deeply involved with Jeffrey Epstein. Like, you're inside of it right now. God damn! God damn! Oh, I'm too far away in proximity to Jeffrey Epstein. 6,000 miles away.
pretty sure that there's so
The
much going on.
current president of Israel, current president, who I know you know, President Herzog,
Knowing very well.
apparently was at Pedo Island. That's what it says in the disclosures. And of course, we know that the former prime minister, Ehud Barak, was living on and off at Epstein's house. So still living high-level Israeli
This is what I mean when I say, like, the worst, one of the worst American political villains of all time, Tucker Carlson, literally comes across like a decent human being in this conversation, because that's how fucking evil Israel is. Okay? It's so strange that I'm like, who do I side with here? Do I side with Israeli Hitler or American Hitler? At least American Hitler hates Israeli Hitler, but like Israeli Hitler is in Israel, American Hitler is in America, and if he actually seizes power in America, then that's worse for like my neighbors and for me. You know, this is the calculation that's going on in my mind. Of course, from this, you know, from where I'm standing, let him fight, right? I mean, it's great.
Officials are directly implicated in Epstein's life, if not his crime. So I would think that you.
I guess my libbed up sensibilities causes me to take the harm reduction here, the harm reduction approach, the lesser evil approach, which would be 99% Hitler is better than 100% Hitler, and Tucker Carlson is 99% Hitler, the 1% being also pro-Israel.
Be following this.
Only, I was not aware that there was any connection with President Herzog. I would be surprised to hear that, and knew there was about the former prime minister, who apparently had a lot of dealings with Epstein.
Business dealings, and
Yeah.
by the way, I'm not alleging anything, but I mean it's in the Epstein files, and I don't know that I've heard the current president of Israel respond to it, but he is listed as a visitor to Pedo Island, so that's kind of a big deal. I wonder, considering there are so many suggestions in the files, as I'm sure you know, of sexual abuse, and given that Jeffrey Epstein was a convicted sex offender, I wonder why the administration you work for would be holding millions of files, which I believe belong to the public, hidden for, quote, national security reasons. What would those national security reasons be, do you think?
Honestly, I think you've probably got more access to the White House sometimes than I do. You should ask them.
Well, but you're the government official representative.
That's crazy to say. Dog, you're the U.S. ambassador to Israel, also known as the most important ambassador, perhaps the only ambassador that matters to the country, the only country on the planet. What the fuck are you saying? Who has better access to the... Like, Tucker Carlson's pretty connected. Tucker Carlson is pretty connected to the American government. That's why he keeps getting these fucking interviews, and I am jealous of that, I will say. Like, he was such a monster, and still is, such a monster for so long, that all of these other monsters think, oh, of course I'll have a comfortable conversation with Tucker Carlson. He's Tucker Carlson. That's why he gets these guys, by the way. That's why he had that fucking Ted Cruz interview. Like, they literally think, oh, that's the devil I know. I mean, it's Tucker Carlson. Of course he's not going to go there, you know? And then he goes there and they're like, oh my God, I can't believe, oh my stars and garters. I didn't realize he was going to go that hard.
That White House.
In Israel. And I represent the U.S. in Israel to the Israeli government from the U.S. government. But honestly, nobody has presented that to us.
Well, now
we have
that
a
you
pretty
know that
dynamic situation here. I don't know if you know that or not, but there's a lot going on in this part of the world. And frankly, that has not been top line item.
But you're surprised to hear that the current president of Israel, whom you know, is listed as a visitor to Pedo Island.
Had never.
How do you reconcile advocating class consciousness while mocking Southern accents so gratuitously? It's awesome and it's very funny. Also, I am trying to do the Mike Huckabee accent. You know what I mean? Maybe you should try being not so sensitive. That's one way to get over it. You know.
Heard that. Never heard it even in the Israeli press.
Are you going to ask him next time you see him?
I'll be happy to. Talk to him almost every week.
I guess what I'm asking is not simply as a representative of my government or a high U.S. official, but just as like a man and a father and a...
Sorry, I got to hit this. I got to hit this for the chatter.
liberal. Liberal, 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 liberal. Happy fun, la la la. Human smuggling, fentanyl deaths. Forced government euthanasia, chopping up children's genitals, la 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 la.
That's you, lib of the day, woke of the day.
Christian, how could you resist saying, like, were you on Pedo Island with Jeffrey Epstein?
Well, if I'm not aware of it, and secondly, there are a lot of things that go on in the world. I don't question every single person about every single thing that may be alleged
of the
about.
country.
I understand all that, but this is the first I've ever heard of this. So why do you expect me to have knowledge of something like that?
Well, because you attacked me personally for suggesting that Jeffrey Epstein had ties to Mossad, and you said that.
You think he does?
What's very clear he does from the
You
files.
think he does?
Yeah.
Where do you get that?
Well, the fact that he was in contact repeatedly with members of the Israeli government, including the current president and the former prime minister, and all kinds of Israeli intel-connected people. I'm not saying he worked for Mossad. I don't think we know that. But there's no question that he had extensive contact with CIA.
But I think you said it, a turning point event. Everybody knows Jeffrey Epstein.
I said everyone thinks, and it turns out everyone was right, that he did have.
I'm not sure everyone was right or everyone thinks.
Okay, but you said that I was lying, and I don't want to make this about me.
I don't think I said you were lying, Tucker. I don't recall.
I'm just saying.
Bell Steve, thank you for the 50 gifted subs.
Why don't we release all the files, and then we don't need to guess?
I got no problem with that. Go ahead.
Would you call on?
Bro, you can't fucking defend this shit like, oh, how anti-Semitic of you, Tucker. How dare you think this man who was hosting not only the Israeli president, but also the former Israeli prime minister at many of his different locations where he was doing international sex trafficking of minors, would somehow be involved with the beautiful nation state of Israel, even though there are thousands upon thousands of emails that are now released to the public where he's talking about setting up surveillance contracts both inside of Israel and also Israeli surveillance contracts outside of Israel. How dare you say that? I do declare, my good sir, it's obvious that he was actually an agent of Iran. That's the argument? That's the fucking argument, dude?
Well, because you weighed in on it and said that this was not true, when of
I
course
said there was no evidence.
Well, there's quite a bit of evidence, but you haven't apparently bothered to read any of the files. Is that what you're saying?
I have not read the Epstein files. Apparently you have.
Well, they're on the internet.
But when you say that that everybody knows that Jeffrey Epstein was a Mossad agent.
I said everyone believes that.
I don't think everybody does. I don't know.
Well, everyone knows that he had contact with, and by the way, not just Israeli intelligence, American intelligence, which is much more distressing for me. I'm not Israeli, I'm American. I don't want my government having any contact with someone like Jeffrey Epstein. So the shame
I wouldn't either.
is on the United States, as far as I'm concerned, just to be totally clear about that. Everyone's very sensitive about the Israel connection, not at all sensitive about the U.S. connection, which I find very revealing. We should care about what our government does first, I think. But since you weighed in on it and said there's no evidence, I'm surprised that since that evidence has been open to the public for a month, since you've already weighed in publicly on this question, that you've made no effort to evaluate that evidence. Why is that?
I just told you I was certainly not aware that there were some specific allegations. I knew about the former prime minister, but I don't know him. I'm not sure I ever met him in my many times. You know, I've been to Israel over 100 times since 1973, the first time.
Oh my God. That's crazy. What the fuck? Bro, that's a crazy amount to go to Israel. That's a crazy amount to go to any country. It's crazy, dude. What the fuck? I guess he's just living his dream now. He's just living there. That could be you for China, but you're weak. At that point, I would just move, man. What do you mean?
Time I came here was 1973, July. And it's almost 53 years of coming and going to this country. So I know the country well. I know a lot of people here. But I don't know everything, and I don't know everybody. But I do know a lot of people.
Of course, no, and I can see your love for it, and I think that's great. But I'm talking about the U.S. government and its responsibility to, there's a lot of complaint about conspiracy theories.
Butter stains. Thank you for the 5 gifted.
A hater. Everyone's assigning motive. But there's a way to end these conversations very quickly with facts. And I'm highly confused by
Have
What's
you brought
going
this
on?
up to the president?
no, I don't work for him. I've said this many
I
times.
know
in
you don't
public.
work for him, but you go to the White House and you see people there. You and J.D. Vance are very good.
Kind of got his ass there. Fucking got him. I mean, actually, have you brought this up to the president that you see all the time? That's a good Uno reverse card. This is what happens when 2 demons match up. You know what I mean?
Good friends. So have you brought this up to them? Because
I have brought this up
is
in public many
It's not on my
times.
portfolio, but apparently it's very strongly on your mind. And I'm
Child
just thinking
molestation
you should
is a
deal with it.
significant concern for me.
Well, it should be for everybody. But if
Well, there's
you're
there is a
particularly
charged child molester.
But I'm saying
in-
if you are very involved in the details of this,
I'm not.
and you think it's the U.S. government that's hiding and shielding somebody, then bring it up to the people that you
I don't
personally know.
think that. I know it because the Justice Department has said we have millions of documents we're not releasing.
Why are they not releasing them?
I'm asking you as a U.S. government official.
Well, but
what the answer
a
might be.
government official at the embassy in Jerusalem that has not one thing to do with the Justice Department and what they're investigating on any given day.
Again,
Unless it involves...
and I don't want to
Yeah.
argue or talk in circles, but you were the one who brought it up and said it's absolutely not true.
I was only responding to what I've heard you say.
Okay, but now that you know
everyone
there's
knows.
evidence and we can settle this debate, you haven't looked at the evidence and you're not pushing for the release of the total corpus of evidence. And I'm confused because I want to believe that your goal is to get to the truth, and the fastest way to do that is by releasing the evidence. Don't you think?
You suggest that I can release the evidence?
I'm suggesting that you could call for it right now.
Well, fine, call for it. Let's have it all open. I thought it was being all opened up for everything I know.
Once it's open, I hope you'll read it because it's really interesting, and then it puts to rest a lot of the debate, and it ends the name calling because we can say, here it is right there. And we don't have to call people names. We can just assess the documents. Let me ask you.
But you bring it up. I hope you will bring it up to people at the White House. That
I'm bringing it up right now. I'm bringing it up now, and I'm asking, I just want to say this one last time, as the U.S. ambassador to Israel, I hope that you will make a formal request to the Israeli government to send every accused sex offender in this country back to the United States to face justice. And I don't understand why that hasn't been done. I'm confused.
Oh, he don't like that. I know this is Tucker's style, but this interview feels extra passive aggressive. It's fucking amazing. God, I could sit through this forever. I mean, this is going to do numbers in the WhatsApp unks too. Oh my God. The entire Ummah is shaking right now. Some of them actually, some of them actually broke their fast without realizing because they were watching this video, okay? This is like, oof. You rarely ever get a chance to have one of these fucking demons in such like a disarmed environment. It's crazy.
Well, we'll try to clear up all the confusion that we have.
Well, if someone's been accused of trying to molest a child, I think it's...
Then certainly, and I'll check with the Justice Department because it is a DOJ issue and it would be handled through DOJ, the U.S., to the court systems in Israel. That's how it would be handled.
But the first step is the Israeli government saying, yes, we will allow you to extradite this person back. The person is being shielded by the government. That's why the person's here. That's why he fled here, so he wouldn't have to stand trial for trying to molest a child. I want to get to as I said at the outset, I said something awful that I regret that my wife barked at me about. I lashed out at Christian Zionists and evangelicals, and I just want to say again that I'm sorry. I've always liked them because they're pro-life and they're also really nice people. So for the third time, I'm sorry that I said that. I think part of my problem was I don't understand the theology, and you are not a fake Baptist minister. You're an actual minister. You had a church for many years. You're an actual theologian. So, and I mean this with sincerity, I hear people say those who bless Israel will be blessed. I know it's a reference to Genesis. I don't understand the connection between that concept and modern Israel and the geopolitical world. And so I'm going to stand back and ask
let's
you
first define, because, from my days as a debater in high school and college, one of the things I knew, you didn't start the debate till you defined the terms.
Amen.
Let's define the terms.
Thank you.
What is,
Thank you.
What is a Christian Zionist?
Okay.
What does that mean to you? What does it mean?
I don't know. It's the people who call me a Nazi for asking what Israel means. I mean, that's kind of I don't even know.
But here's the point. If you say a Christian Zionist is a person who has a brain virus and is guilty of heresy, that's a pretty big charge.
I know. I shouldn't have made it. I made it out of anger and ignorance.
So
He's such a bitch. He's such a bitch. No, you should say that. I think Zionism is a cancerous fascist ideology, and it don't matter what qualifier you have in front of it, Christian, Jewish, Muslim, doesn't fucking matter. They're still fascists, and they're brain diseased. That's it. Oh, I shouldn't have said that. Oh, I'm so sorry. Fucking bitch.
I'm Christian. I think we can agree as somebody who follows Jesus Christ.
Exactly.
Has a personal relationship with Jesus Christ, believes in his death, burial, resurrection, has repented of one's sins, and have accepted him as one Savior. Would that be fair?
Amen.
Christian. Define that. Zionist. A Zionist simply means a person who believes that the Jewish people have a right to have a homeland where they have security and safety. Did you believe that the Jews have a right to live in Israel? Do you believe that?
A Nazi simply means, Tucker, now you know this as well as I do, people of the Aryan nation having a homeland in Germany and Greater Germany, just like Israel and Greater Israel both have a right to exist. That's simply what it is. Why do you hate Aryans and white people having their own homeland, rid of the scourge of the uninitiated, the socialist, communist, Jews, the disabled, the Roma population? Simply speaking, do all people not have the right to a homeland? They didn't say dying room is what they need. They said they need living room, Tucker. That's right. Living room, not dying room.
Jews have a right to live in Israel?
That
would be a Zionist. That's all a Zionist is.
I have a million questions about what all of those terms mean.
Yeah.
But conceptually, I wish Israel no harm. I don't want to see them
You want them to have a place where they can live with safety and security?
I saw this recently in an extremely...
This is where Tucker Carlson, not being an anti-Zionist and being low-key a little bit of a fascist, actually puts them at odds with the way that Huckabee is framing the conversation, right? Because, I'm sure he'll do a good job slicing and dicing through this, but the reality of the matter is, no, there is no established right that one people can go and kill a bunch of people that are not a part of that in-group and settle there. That's ridiculous. There was a country that tried to do that. That country is called Nazi Germany. There was another country that tried to do that called Rhodesia. It doesn't exist anymore, right? There have been countries that have attempted to do this and they failed. They failed in large part because, in the case of Nazi Germany, we fought back, right? And it was good that we fought back.
Telling exchange between the lieutenant governor of Texas, who I know and I've always liked, and a woman I don't know, never met, who's on the Religious Liberty Commission or something. And she said, I'm a Catholic, but I'm not a Zionist. And they have this ferocious exchange. And he kept saying, and everyone on the panel seemed to keep saying, you have to believe in Israel's right to exist, which I've never kind of questioned, just for the record, but it did raise two questions I think are really important, and I hope you'll answer them. One is, where does that right come from?
I would say it comes from, essentially, you could say it comes from the Bible. I would say that it does. But it comes also from a long iteration of historical precedents going to the Balfour Declaration of 1917. It comes from the League of Nations 1927. It comes from the United Nations 1947,
Right.
the Declaration of Independence of the Israel State in May of 1948. They were immediately attacked. They won the war. They were attacked again in 1956. They won the war. They were attacked again in 1967 by 5 countries. They won the war. They were attacked again in 1973 in the Yom Kippur War. They won the war. The point is, does Israel have a right to exist? They also had wars in 1982 in Lebanon. They've had the Intifadas, 2 of those. They've had
Lebanon
war
again in 06. I was there. No, I'm very familiar with the modern history of the state.
Okay.
Pretty familiar, I think. And I've been
But a
here.
Zionist simply means somebody who believes that Israel has a right to exist. Now, the question is,
Dude, they're just always getting attacked, man. Always the victim. It's just so crazy. And Tucker, think about all that land that happens to reside right outside of the confines of current Israel, waiting to be called Greater Israel, Tucker. After all, there is a great appetite for said land, Tucker. Why can't Israel grow, Tucker? Why do you not want them to have a living room?
I believe Israel has a right to
I
exist.
guess. I mean, I want Israel
Yes.
to exist. Well, no, but I want to know what that means. So, like, do other countries have a right to exist?
Well, they do exist.
Do they have a right to exist? You keep saying Israel has a right to exist, and I want to know what other countries
They have a
right.
legal right because every international body in the last 100 years has said the Jewish people have a right
I
to
understand.
their
You explained
indigenous
it, but
homeland.
my question
so that's a
is,
legal right.
what
Do
other-
they have a biblical right? I would say that yes, but you may say they don't.
I don't know. I'm actually
Okay.
sincerely interested in finding out what you mean by a biblical right. But first, to the legal right, does any other country on the planet have the same right that Israel has to exist?
Well, you could say, does Jordan have a right to exist? When it was Transjordan and the Brits came and divided up the Middle East and they gave some land to Jordanians and they gave some land to the Saudis and they gave some land to various Middle Eastern countries, and it was all carved up. And the French gave Lebanon its right to exist. Do they have a right to exist?
Do they?
Well, why not? Why
Okay.
not?
So that's my. So
Yeah.
every
Does
country.
the U.S. have a right to exist?
I'm asking you.
Okay, and I'm telling you, I think the U.S. has a right to exist.
Okay.
We came here, we came there, we're
Right.
in Israel now talking, but does the U.S. have a right to exist? Does anyone question whether we have a right to exist?
I don't. Yeah, but I, of course, I'm for America. You know.
Good for you.
But so every current country on the map has the same right to exist that Israel has. Is that what you're saying?
I think what we're saying is that when a country has established itself and it is following international law, it has been deemed by numerous bodies that it is indigenous to its homeland, as Israel is. This is its homeland. It goes back 3,800 years to the time of Abraham. It's not that
hold on. Now I'm
the
getting
Jewish people just showed up here in 1948 and said, we're going to have some land
Hold on.
here."
So those are two different tracks, and I just want to make sure that we separate them so I understand each one separately.
All right.
So you're saying there's the modern legal framework, and so you said a country that abides by international law has a right to exist.
I would say that that is a part of its existence.
Would the inverse be true that a country that does not abide by international law forfeits its right to exist?
Not necessarily if it has the capacity to stay and make its case known. But there have been Jewish people in this land,
but that's
in
a
this
separate-
very land, for 3,800 years.
Okay. So, but you're saying as the modern nation state with borders and a military and a Knesset and just all the kind of trappings of a modern country, all of which I support, that country has, every country on the planet has the same right as Israel to exist because it does exist. Is that what you're saying? I'm just trying to understand the concept here.
Well, I think what we're trying to get to is Christian Zionism, and you've taken this way off the road
I don't
here.
know that I have. I don't
Yeah.
mean to. Christian Zionism is a separate thing, but I just keep hearing people say Zionism is the belief
That's
that
the fundamental argument that's going on. Does Israel have a right to live in their indigenous, ancient, historical land, a land that has been affirmed throughout international organizations, a land that has direct ties to the Jewish people.
I just want to know if this is a universal principle. I guess that's what I'm getting.
It's boring. No, Israel doesn't fucking care about international rights at all. Why the fuck should we act like they care about it only when it benefits the existence of the state of Israel? No nation has a right to exist as a fucking ethnic enclave built on top of an indigenous population that it's ethnically cleansing. What is this fucking argument, dude? And if the answer to the counter to that is, well, America became what it is because of that, then you say, yeah, that was a horrifying, evil thing that the early settlers did. Does it, like the Nazis did the Holocaust, does that mean we can do another Holocaust? Should we do another Holocaust? Do you not have an opinion separated from, well, other countries did it too? Do two wrongs make a right? Well, I mean, I guess he would say, yeah, Israel has a right to do a Holocaust. After all, it was done to the Jews, and therefore Israel can do a Holocaust. That's why I defend Israel all the time. It's just like, it's such a stupid back and forth. Like, oh, does this country have a right to exist? Does that country have a right to exist? This isn't boring. Everyone is watching him refuse to say any country is equal to Israel and its right to exist. This is pure normie gold making them say, wait, I thought he would say yes. Why isn't he saying yes? I don't know. I'm more annoyed by it.
Yeah, because if it's not, then it's meaningless to me. Because as a Christian, I believe in universal principles. Something is right for everyone, or it's wrong for everyone. We don't believe in special cases.
But here's the question. If the Jews didn't have this land, would the Jews have a right to any land?
I don't know. I'm not attacking the Jews. I'm asking if this applies to every people and every nation. Does every nation have the same right to its own homeland, to its own physical land that you say Israel does?
I feel like we're in a rabbit hole here.
No, I think it's a very straightforward question. No, but does that right extend to other countries other than Israel?
But the most important thing that is going on in our culture right now is whether or not the people that are yelling in the streets from the river to the sea, whether that's a legitimate point of view to say that there should not be a Jewish homeland. There should not be a Jewish state.
You'll never hear me say that. I just want to know.
I know you haven't said it, but that's the argument.
It's one of the arguments going on globally. And the United States, excuse me, has a pretty narrow view, I would say, in our media culture, of what's happening around the world. There are plenty of countries having this debate. Stonehenge is a lot older than the first temple in Israel. And it was built by the same people who live there now. It's the same people. And they are being pushed off their island and outnumbered by people from other places. And so in Great Britain, in Ireland, which is also a country with a nation of people, a race, if you will, that is being displaced, replaced.
Who are they being replaced by?
Immigrants.
Okay.
It's cool that Mike Huckabee is so fucking predisposed with defending Israel that he like doesn't even understand that Tucker Carlson is doing like right-wing fascist agitprop. And it causes Mike Huckabee to come across as woke for a brief moment. Like, who's displacing them, Tucker?
From other places.
I just wanted to clarify because I was one of the...
Well, just as a demographic matter, it's just like you can look at the numbers. It's not controversial. Just look at the numbers. There'll be a minority in their country. And their people have been there longer than...
Stonehenge was built by the people that are still living there is so funny. Especially when you talk about like England being invaded or displaced. It's one of the fucking dumbest arguments to make because England is mostly just famous for being invaded. Okay? Like throughout time, there's very rarely been a moment after they got done being invaded quite a bit, then they decided to do the invading with its naval fleet. But like, it's pretty funny for him to talk about England as though it's like this you know, an invasion of England is this totally unique incident that has never happened throughout history. Every person that you consider to be, you know, proper British is a product of those centuries of invasion.
Jews have been in Israel, and so they're having this debate too. That's all I'm saying. And lots of places are having this debate.
Sure.
So does that principle apply to everyone, or is it specific just to Israel?
I think it applies specifically to Israel. It applies to anyone who can prove that they have some connection to the land and connection to the history and connection to international law.
Okay, Palestinians then? That's fucking insane.
law. But Israel, I think, does
Why
have
do you keep
an
bringing up
extraordinary
international law? So if, again...
Well, no, but let me finish this,
Yes.
Tucker, because here's the point. We're talking about Christian Zionism. The idea that as a Christian, I believe in both the Old and the New Testament. Why wouldn't I?
This argument fucking annoys the shit out of me, dude. I'm sorry. I don't give a fuck if every single Jewish person around the planet could directly trace their lineage back to what is now known as the state of Israel, okay? I don't care. Why should anybody care about this? Does that mean they get to fucking wipe out the people that are living there? Are you fucking stupid? There is no world in which this kind of argumentation is applied in 2026. The very fact that, like, you know, Ashkenazis can't trace their fucking lineage back to Israel or whatever is irrelevant to the conversation. It's also obviously not true. Like, there are plenty of people that have you know, mixed throughout the land over time, over thousands of fucking years. But, like, I genuinely think that argument, even if it was 100% correct, is not useful in this conversation at all. Okay? The people that tried to make this conversation, also by making up this like fake mythology around peoples, was literally Nazi Germany.
A person of the book. There are 80 million evangelical Christians in the United States. What makes us who we are is our adherence to the Scripture, our belief that the Bible, all of it, not part of it, but all of it, is the Word of the living God.
Yeah.
So if I believe in the Old and the New Testament, I do believe that there is a very specific call to the Jewish people that started with Abraham, and he called them out of what is now modern-day Iraq, said, "Come where I send you." He came. This is the land. Genesis 12:3. He says, "I will bless those who bless you, curse those who curse you." In Genesis 17, he looks out at the world. He says, "Look, and this is where I'm giving you the land."
I think
And
it's
since that time, there have been people living in this land,
Right.
connected to that moment of history. So there is a historical connection that is unbroken.
You've said that, and I want to ask you what that means a little more specifically, if that's okay. But first, let me just say that you could say the same thing of Britons who've been there in their land longer.
Is anyone trying to tell the Brits they can't live there anymore?
No, what's happening is...
But they are saying that to the Jews.
Oh, okay. But I just wonder if you would extend the same sympathy or the same principle. You seem like this is... You think I'm trying to trap you? I'm not. I'm at all trying to trap you. It'd be as simple as saying native Britons have the same...
I got no problem with the native Brits having their land.
Having the right to their land.
But my point is, I don't know that there is a biblical connection for the Brits.
Okay.
But I would say...
So that's what it comes down to.
Take that off the table, and I think there's still a basis for the Jews having this little bitty strip of real estate.
I'm not even arguing with you. I'm just trying to... At all. I'm just trying to understand what it is that you're saying, because it's not obvious to me, and maybe it's an IQ problem, but I'm having trouble understanding this. But let me just go back to just clarify one thing.
Okay.
You've brought up international law at least twice, maybe three times, as a basis for Israel's legitimacy. If Israel was out of compliance with international law, whatever that is, would it be less legitimate?
Depends on if the law and the way it's applied is legitimate. There are some applications of so-called international law that are not legitimate.
I agree.
Look at the ICC or the ICJ.
I agree.
Utterly ridiculous. One of the reasons I'm so grateful President Trump and Secretary Rubio are pushing hard, trying to get rid of the ICC and the ICJ, is because they have become rogue organizations that are no longer really about an equal application of law and justice.
I don't know enough about it to say if that's true or not. But I'm interested that you yourself appealed to international law as a basis of Israel's
Well, what I'm
legitimacy.
looking at is the whole of the last 100 years.
The Balfour Declaration is not exactly international law, by the way. It was a letter, I think.
It was maybe not law, but it was a declaration. It was an assumption and a declaration that was done by Lord Balfour in Great Britain. At that time, this land was under the British mandate, and he said the Jews should have the land that was theirs from 3,800 years ago. It was simple as that.
Right, and I'm not debating that. I'm just it was not international law. It was a colonial power saying, okay,
but then
here's how
later
we're going
it
to
was
divide up the
international
world
law
after
under the League of Nations, under the United Nations, and then because of the victories that Israel had against those who tried to annihilate them. And it wasn't just that they were trying to take a little piece of their land, they tried to annihilate them.
Okay.
And there is still to this day the shouts of from the river to the sea. And Tucker, that means only one thing, not the shrinking of Israel, but the annihilation of Israel.
I don't think
that's different.
I don't think you can say that you know what it means, actually, because you don't know what's in people's hearts. So why don't we just deal with the facts? Maybe some people mean it.
I know it's in their
that.
mouths. I know it's in their minds.
But I'm not, look, you'll never hear me say that. What you will hear me say is I'm confused by what the definitions are. So let's go through this. You've appealed to Genesis. Genesis 15 says it's Abram, it's pre-Abraham, it's Abram, receives from God the news that his descendants will inherit the land. And you tell me as the theologian if I'm getting this wrong, but from the Euphrates to the Nile. I think that's right. And that would include like basically the entire Middle East. That would be the Levant, so that would be Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. It would also be big parts of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. It would be, I mean...
I'm not sure it would go that far. I mean, it would be a big piece of land, but here's the point.
It would be a lot of places that are now countries.
But this particular area that we're talking about now, Israel, is a land that God gave through Abraham to a people that he chose. It was a people, a place, and a purpose. We can look at it that way. Christian Zionism, I want to go back because that's where we started on this.
I'm not going to let you off on this because you have said it 3 times that God gave this land to this people. And so it is entirely fair for me with respect to ask, what land are you talking about? Because I just read Genesis 15, as I have many times. Mm-hmm. And that land, I think it says, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave that land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis.
Yeah.
You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all. But I don't think that's what we're talking about here today.
What would be fine? Well, it's exactly what we're talking about today.
But here's what I don't think
you think it would be fine if the state of Israel took over all of Jordan?
They don't want to take it over. They're not asking to take it over.
But you're saying that the reason that Israel is legitimate, has this inherent right to exist, is in part because God gave it to his people. And I am going to the same Bible that you're referring to and noticing that that is a huge piece of land. So if God gave them that land, then they have a right to take it now by your definition, unless I'm missing something completely.
Well, I think you're missing something because they're not asking to go back to take all of that, but they are asking to at least take the land that they now occupy, they now live in, they now own legitimately, and it is a safe haven for them.
Well, but may I ask, though, because you're explaining what Christian Zionism is and your theological beliefs. And you think you just said it would be fine with you if the state of Israel took all of Jordan, all of Syria, all of Lebanon.
That's really not exactly what I'm trying to say.
I'm asking,
Tucker.
Is that what you said? I thought that's what you just said.
It was somewhat of a hyperbolic statement in that, if that's what you feel like that we're talking about, but it isn't. We're talking about this land that Israel, the state of Israel, now lives in and wants to have peace in. They're not trying to take over Jordan. They're not trying to take over Syria. They're not trying to take over Iraq or anywhere else. But they do want to protect Lebanon? Their people. No, they're not trying to take over Lebanon.
But you're saying that as a religious man, as a Christian Zionist, you agree with a lot of religious communities here in Israel that the justification for this country is theological. It's a contract between God and his people. And I'm telling you that contract includes a tract of land that is much larger than the current nation state.
So you may be a bigger Zionist than even the Jews are that live in Israel.
I'm trying to understand the implications of your theology for geopolitics, because you're saying that the present government of Israel has a moral right to take over what are now other people's countries.
No, I didn't say that.
Then what are you saying?
I'm simply saying that the people who live in Israel, I think, have a right to have security, have safety. They have a right to be able to live in this land that they have a connection to for 38
I told myself when I said a prayer that I would not get annoyed, but as someone who is, the father of daughters, when I see child molesters hiding in Israel and escaping American justice, I think I have a right to safety in my country too. So you can understand that I think most people feel they have a right to safety. I do think Israel has a right to safety, and I hope that for them, and I'm sincere. But I'm an American, and I have a right to safety in my country too.
Of course you do.
Agree? And I think so. But I just want to get to this point. If Israel were to say, God gave us in Genesis 15 all of Lebanon, all of Syria, all the way up to Iraq, would that be legitimate in your view?
I don't think in this particular day and time they're asking for it.
Would it be legitimate?
I'm not sure that it would be.
Why? Because
bro, if they said we want it, Mike very clearly is like, yeah, in the future, if they want it, they can get it. I mean, he just said it. ADL hasn't tweeted about Tucker. Isn't that interesting?
you just said that God gave it to them.
Because I think that there is an understanding that the people of Israel today, now, if they end up getting attacked by all these places and they win that war and they take that land, then okay, that's a whole nother discussion. But you and I started out. We started talking about something simple: Christian Zionism.
But it turns out it's not simple because the core of Christian Zionism, you said, and I'm quoting you, is the understanding, the belief, the theological understanding that Jews have a moral and legal, we went through the legal,
biblical,
moral deriving from the biblical, from the promises in our Bible, which we share with the Jewish people, the first part of it, the Old Testament, that it derives from God's promise to the Jews. And so I have two questions. What are the borders of that? And who are those people in 2026? And you're not the first person I've asked, but you're the most reasonable, most gentle, most theologically informed person. So I'm really hoping for an answer.
Yeah.
The first question was the borders. I can't get an answer.
Yeah.
Those borders are. So I'm going to give up. But the second question is every bit as pressing, which is who are the people? Who are the modern? Yes. Who are the descendants? So we know, and I believe, and I agree with you as a Christian, that God promised this land from modern day Iraq to modern day Egypt to this people, the Jews, to Abram's, actually not to Abram's descendants, as it says in Genesis 15. Who are his descendants now, and how do we know who they are?
I think they're the Jews, and we know.
Do you guys understand why I think this argument is like kind of stupid though? Like I'm sure for like Christians that are listening in, maybe this like makes Christian Zionism look stupid, but like the argument against Israel isn't like whether or not Jews can trace their genetics back to like this historic land. You know what I mean? Like it's not. Destroying that argument doesn't actually make Israel's right to existence less valid, right? Stop calling the fairy tale argument stupid. I mean, it is stupid. Even if the fairy tale was real, it would still be stupid, right? That's my point. Like, even if this wasn't a fucking fairy tale and it was like valid, like I'm talking straight up, every single Jew can directly trace their lineage all the way back to this location, it would still not be valid. What Israel is doing would still be considered invalid. It's fucking ridiculous. I'm not doing the r/atheism argument here. Do you understand what I'm saying? I'm not saying like, oh, Santa Claus promised me, Mongolia or whatever. Okay. I'm not saying that. I'm saying even if Santa Claus very much promised me Mongolia, it was in the book of Santa Claus. I still don't have a right to go to Mongolia and kill all the Mongolians and be like, this is my land now, bitch. Sorry, sucks to suck. Like it's just so crazy. You know, yeah, jingle bells, bitch. Saint Nicholas was Turkish. And he promised me Mongolia 3,000 years ago. Turks still desiring Mongolia because of epigenetic memories? Yeah, that's why I brought up Mongolia.
know who they are because they've always been a Jewish people. There has been an unbroken line of Jewish people.
You're missing the argument. You're not understanding the target audience. I'm just saying it's extremely relevant to any Christians who can be convinced that those are real. Those people are Palestinians. It makes them feel motivated to protect them. Ugh. Sure. I mean, to each their own, I guess. Everybody has a different way, different role to fulfill in this conversation. It's just like, I think if you're a Christian, you should not want people to be slaughtered, okay? It shouldn't be like, oh, well, those are the original Christians that Israel is now slaughtering. Only then am I primed and motivated to stop this slaughter.
This land for 3,800 years. Sometimes not very many of them because they were chased out all over the world. They were hunted down. They were almost annihilated during the Holocaust. They came back. To this day, Tucker, they represent, you know how many Jews there are in the whole world?
Please,
No,
I understand. First of all, the greatest genocide of Jews no one ever mentions was by the Romans, where they were literally banned from Jerusalem for 500 years.
Yeah, of course.
And it's all awful. And I'm opposed to all of that. I'm opposed to mass killing of anybody, period. I'm opposed to
hear
killing.
you say that.
I mean it.
Yeah.
And I hope
I
we can
believe
agree
that.
on that.
I believe that.
My question is, and it's not a bumper sticker answer, it's a sincere answer, how do we know? Because what you're saying is that certain people have a title to a highly contested region. They own it in some deep sense. So I think it's fair to ask, who are they and how do we know? So the current prime minister's ancestors weren't from here within recorded history. He has no deed. Bibi Netanyahu, on one side, his family's from Poland. They're from Eastern Europe. So how do we know that he has a connection to the people who God promised the land to, Abram's descendants? How do we know that?
Well, if you take the genealogies that come not only from the Old but the New Testament, you see that there is a historical connection through the entirety of the Old and the New Testament that details the Jewish connection to this land.
Does that include Bibi's family? How do we know that if his family
if they were
comes here,
scattered,
but how do we know it's the same people? Why is that crazy? If you say to me,
if they speak the same language, if they worship the same God, if they follow the same Bible, if they follow the same cultures and traditions, and they always pray next year in Jerusalem, and they pray for the peace of Jerusalem, and they pray facing toward Jerusalem, does that not give you a little bit of a clue as to who they are?
Well, let's go through those things, because I would like to have a rational This is a conversation I've wanted. Bless you. Thank you for doing this. Let's just go through those things.
Okay.
So one of the things I admire most about Israel is they resurrected a dead language in 1948. Good for them.
Well, they really didn't resurrect it. It was existent.
Okay, I'm not. That's a compliment. I'm not slighting.
No. But it is the first time in all of human history that a language has survived through this length of time. It's. I would call it. You might not, but I would call it a miracle. One of many.
Okay.
That you can attribute to this land.
Bruh. I don't want to say something that was going to come across as anti-Semitic. So I'm just going to say it in the nicest ways possible. Mike Huckabee is a Philo-Semite. Okay? That's all I'm going to say. Like, I laugh when people talk about like goy cattle or whatever the fuck, 4chan neo-Nazis say. But Mike Huckabee is definitely a person who is more invested in Israel for Philo-Semitic reasons than anyone else I have ever encountered in my life. Okay? It is crazy. And I guess this is like evangelical Zionism is this. It's just wild to see it go through its motions in real time as the fucking cogs are turning. Like, this man does not need AIPAC money. Okay? Sure, the AIPAC money is great. Absolutely. But this man, with or without AIPAC money, is a fedayeen for the state of Israel. Okay? It really makes me understand better when I hear stuff coming from certain government officials, and I'm like, what are you saying? Like, what do you actually care more about Israel than you do about your own country? For example, like I think Mike Huckabee, and I guess it's not anti-Semitic to say this because he isn't Jewish. Mike Huckabee cares 100 times more about Israel than he does about American citizens, his own, maybe even members of his own family. Okay, I think if there was a situation where Benjamin Netanyahu was like, you have to kill Sarah Huckabee Sanders, like you have to shoot her with this the cattle prod machine that we have, Mike Huckabee would be like, oh yes sir, yes master, I would love to do that for you. Does this advance Israel's interests an iota? Because if that's the case, I would do it gladly. Should I kill myself after? It's fucking crazy. Mike Huckabee cares about Israel more than 99% of American Jews do, with the exception of, like, I don't know, fucking Miriam Adelson or something, okay? And even then, they're going toe-to-toe. Like, Miriam Adelson's telling Mike Huckabee, like, bro, dial it back. Like, fucking Jesus Christ, dude. What are you saying? It is fucking crazy. Why don't you go as hard as Nick does on this? Because I'm not an agent of the American State Department like Nicolas Fuentes is, okay? Mr. Jeffrey Epstein is actually based. The only problem with Jeffrey Epstein is that he's Jewish. I have plenty more issues with the American State Department because I have a more complex view of the situation. What kind of fucking dumb question is that? Oh, why don't you just like shit on Jews, bro? I don't know. Maybe because I'm anti-genocide and anti-fascist, not anti-Jew. Yeah, why don't you go as hard against Israel as the neo-Nazi does, who sells Jeffrey Epstein quarter-zip merchandise, who very clearly cares more about being edgy and based than like, I don't know, making any sort of meaningful commentary about the state of Israel. Fucking idiot. This is one of the most annoying parts about like aside from the overall environment of unsafety for random Jewish people and shit, like this has been a real nuisance, a real thorn in my fucking corner of dumb fucks thinking that like the maximalist position on Israel is to be an anti-Semite. You're a fucking loser. You're an idiot. Israel loves anti-Semites. You're serving the purposes of Israel. Fucking cattle. That's what you are. You're like, oh yeah, all the edgy stuff that I learned on 4chan, which may or may not have been a fucking Jeffrey Epstein-backed psyop to brain break a bunch of young groypers and take all of the dissatisfaction into a much more manageable position and not an like actual anti-Zionist one. All you give a fuck about is being like, yeah, well, why don't we just like get rid of the Jews, bro? Say Hitler's base, bro. Nick does not hate Israel. Nick loves Israel. He's just jealous of Israel. He wants to do Israel in America, but for what he considers to be true legacy Americans. Now, whether or not Nicolas Fuentes as a homosexual Mexican man fits the part of that in-group, I do not know. He seems to think so. Some other, more Aryan versions of Nicolas Fuentes might disagree with him. He gets real bent out of shape when you bring that up.
It's wonderful as someone who loves language. Netanyahu's parents did not speak Hebrew. Okay, they didn't live in this region. Netanyahu, the founders of this country, were mostly secular. Some of them were avowed atheists. They were not praying for the peace of Jerusalem. They weren't praying at all because they didn't believe in God. There's no genealogy linking their families to the people of this land 3,000 years ago. They're none. So how do we know, since they didn't share a language, they didn't share a religion, they had no religion whatsoever, how do we know that they had a right to come here from Eastern Europe? And
but they were
take
scattered.
the land.
They were scattered to Eastern Europe.
That.
They were scattered all over the world. There were many in Ethiopia. They were in Russia. They were in.
Yeah, look.
They're literally counting down the days until whites are a minority in America. So forgive me if I don't believe them when they talk about compassion. There's a genocide going on right now. It's not against the Jews.
How many Christians are there?
Gaza, it's against
How many
whites.
Christians are there in the world? Like me.
1 point some billion.
Yeah,
2 billion.
How many Jews are there?
15 million.
Okay. So with a straight face, you're going to tell me the world is being overrun by the Jewry, by 15 million people, when there are over 1 billion Christians. There is a genocide of Christians like poor old Nick Fuentes going on at the hands of these 15 million Jews. Really?
See, this attitude.
Why would you lie and say he's a homosexual?
Bruh.
Just because he's in the closet doesn't mean he's not throwing it back. Okay? Pull up the cowboy pics.
Is why you're losing. When you say
who am I losing to?
White people,
who am I losing to?
White people.
Who am I losing to?
You're seeing it. Mass migration. Oh, you're losing to me. We are losing as a civilization of mass migration. And here's the difference. In Israel, they have my politics. In Israel, they want to maintain a Jewish majority. If they had it their way, it would only be Jewish people. They're fighting like hell so that Jewish people can have as much territory, a Jewish state. They can be proudly Jewish in their own land. Whereas in America, we are being besieged by 10.
There it is. I mean, this is the most honest assessment.
Million illegal immigrants in 4 years.
He is correct. Israel does have Nick Fuentes' politics. Jewish supremacist politics, exterminationist politics. Nick Fuentes, on the other hand, has a different hierarchy. He has a different in-group, out-group dynamic. That's it.
Whites and Christians are going to be the minority. And that's true in Canada, Australia, all the countries in Europe. So you could say there's 2 billion people, but what's the proportionality? What is the percentage of people being born that are white? Where's the...
Okay, the rest of it is just like white genocide nonsense.
Poland, they were throughout Asia. Jews were all over the place, but they were still Jews. But they were still Jews.
Okay,
That's
so then
what
let
made
me
them
get to the
unique.
nub of the question, since again, a lot is at stake, a lot of money is at stake. Land is very valuable. Israel has a lot of resources. By the way, if you're accused of a crime, you can hide here. That's a pretty good passport to have. It's a good thing, right? So who's entitled to it? I don't understand, and you're very discouraged in the United States from asking this question for some reason. It's a totally rational
I'm not
question.
discouraged.
No, you're not discouraging
Yeah.
me. Others do. You're like the only person I can have this conversation with. Everyone will be like, shut up, Nazi. It's a foundational question. Are you speaking of an ethnic group or a religious group?
Well, I think you're looking at, for many people, it is religious. There are people who may not have a deep religious connection to Judaism, but they're still Jews.
Okay, so it's an ethnic category.
It is ethnic, but it is also religious. It is rooted in religion. You can't take it out of it. Now, that means
then
there are
how
some people,
can an atheist...
Well, I will tell you this. There are some people who say, I'm Christian. They never go to church. They never pray. They never read their Bible. They don't tithe.
But they're not entitled to citizenship on the basis of that.
Well,
they're
but
not
I'm saying
entitled
that
to...
they still call themselves Christian,
Of course.
even though they identify
Okay,
in
but
that way.
here's the difference. You're saying that people...
If he wants to fucking cook Tucker Carlson, he could be like, don't you love it when white Christian nations want to come to the United States of America? White Christian nationals? Why can't the Jews have that, Tucker? You know? Because that's it. That's where you get Tucker Carlson. You can just do the same thing to Nick Fuentes as well. If someone is obsessed with demographic replacement or whatever psychotic nonsense they have, because this is what all nationalists believe at the end of the day, you could just easily turn this around and be like, oh, well, why can't Jews have this thing? Why isn't it wonderful if America was more tolerant to white Christians coming from all around the world? Wouldn't you want to combat against this demographic replacement that you talk about by allowing more white Christians?
People who have this identification have a deed to a huge chunk of land on the Mediterranean. Okay, so there's, it's a right. You keep telling me it's a right, and so it's totally fair to say if you come to my house and say I've got the title to your house, I get to ask, may I see it? Where'd you get it? And that's exactly what happened here. People from Europe, Eastern Europe, came here, in a lot of cases atheists, and kicked out a lot of people who lived here.
Land.
Well, but
they did not just throw people out.
They bought a lot of land. There's no question about that.
They did buy a lot of land.
But they also, in 1948, kicked out a lot of people.
In the war.
Oh, it was a war. I agree.
Yeah.
I'm not want to relitigate the history. I'm just saying it's a fact.
Okay.
Including a lot of Christians wound up fleeing, and they lost their homes, and they've never been allowed back. And all of this was justified on the basis of this identity that is the ticket to the right that you keep referring to. So my question is very simple. I'm going to wait patiently for an answer. Does this right derive from religious affiliation or from genetics?
And I would say it's both. But I would also say that when you said the Christians were kicked out, Tucker, Christianity is growing in Israel.
Okay, but
and there is a big lie that goes out there. But no, let me finish this, because I keep hearing that Christians are really not treated well in Israel. That's a lie.
Well, there are lots of different. There are lots of different.
There were 34,000 Christians in Israel in 1948. There are 184,000 Christians here today.
And by Israel, what are you counting?
You're talking about the land?
What territory are you counting? I'm counting about Israel proper? Or are you counting
about Israel
the West
proper
Bank as well and Gaza? I mean, what do you, when you say Israel, those numbers apply to what landmass?
It would be in Israel proper.
Okay.
There are 184,000. Now, I'll tell you where Christians are not doing very well. They're not doing very well in the Muslim-controlled countries. There's almost no Christians in Qatar, for example, except those who live in the Christian ghetto, who are the service workers.
I'm sorry. Look, I don't want to argue with you. There are many more Christians in Qatar than there are in Israel.
That's not true.
It actually is true. And I refer you to Wikipedia, Mr. Ambassador.
Wikipedia.
It literally is true. It is true. They're just not. No, it is true. They're just not. They're residents. They're not nationals. Which still, as residents, they get better treatment in Qatar than obviously the Palestinians do. So,
I refer you to the government of Qatar, the government of Israel. These are knowable facts. I'm in Jordan. By the way,
numbers are down. In Syria, the numbers are down. In Lebanon, the numbers are down. I'm just telling you that
about twice as many Christians.
But they live in the enclave. They are not native Qataris.
Okay, we're mixing so many different categories here. I'm just saying I get things wrong all the time. You've just gotten something wrong, and I think it's important to acknowledge it. There are many more Christians in Qatar than there are in Israel. Fact.
How many?
Now you caught me. I don't know. I can look at my phone, but I was just there. And
Hasan just had a Cuban journalist who's living in Havana right now. She directly contradicts Camila Cabello's post in terms of blaming the regime instead of U.S. sanctions. Get rid of the sanctions is the best way to prove your theory. Hasan previously interviewed a Cuban doctor who works in Cuba. He explains the devastating impact of U.S. sanctions on their healthcare industry. The first challenge is the blockade that was imposed by the government of the U.S. for more than 60 years. Damn, my beard was fucking thick back then. Holy shit. So she's a government propagandist. Of course she will defend their dear leaders. What the fuck? I do think that a lot of this conversation is just like all over the place and it's so silly. Hasan, Israel is not real. It's not a real state. It's not their land. It's just thieves living on stolen land. Every Muslim country should not every Muslim country. Every country should denounce Israel. Every people with a conscience should denounce fascism of every sort. Okay, it's that simple for me, at least. Whether it be American fascism, what we're doing in fucking Cuba, or whether it be the fascism in Israel. Your Discord doesn't welcome vegans. They called me out and then they banned me for defending my views. Here you go.
There are many more, like whatever. But I just want to get to the point that forms the basis of this whole conversation, which is who has a right to the land?
Yeah.
And you said it's a mixture of religion and ethnicity. Because as I noted, and you agree,
It's very obvious that chatter got banned from Discord for being fucking annoying, like right now. You know, like clearly.
many of the founders, maybe the majority of the founders of modern Israel, did not believe in God at all. So they were not religious Jews. They weren't religious at all. They were atheists. They said they were atheists. I believe them. So that suggests it's ethnic. But it's also true, as you well know, because there's a famous court case about this, that ethnic Jews who convert to Christianity do not have the right of return. That was settled by the Israeli Supreme Court. I'm very confused. So that would suggest it's not ethnicity, because you invalidate your Jewishness by converting to Christianity?
There are a number of Messianic Jews who live in Israel.
Okay.
Who are here.
I'm aware of
It's a
I'm aware of that
significant
number.
He's like, I'm one of them, Tucker. He's like, I should know. I'm practically one of them. Now, I haven't fully converted. I am a little scared of the snip process, you know. I don't got too much meat down there to begin with. I don't want to shave off an inch.
But you're not contesting what I'm saying, because it's a very famous court case.
The right of return has to do with your mother, your grandmother. It has to do with family.
Yeah, or it has to do with how white you are, Tucker, from a place called the USSR. Bet you love that one, don't you? That's right. It's mostly just for Jews, but then also sometimes for the Slavs as well that were coming from the USSR with no ties to the religion whatsoever. But we let that slide. Sometimes I say we because I meant they, not we, Tucker. I'm sorry for saying we on accident.
It's ethnic.
There's a lot of, sure, ethnicity is a big part of the right of return.
Great.
To make aliyah, to come to Israel, to live here.
Then if both of your parents are Jewish and you have an ethnic right to the land, you are one of Abram's descendants, but you convert to Christianity, how is it you don't have the right to return? I'm totally confused.
But I know a number of people who have returned as Christians, but have Jewish history.
Are
and
you
Jewish
saying that Jews who convert to Christianity have a right, a legal right to return? Because I
know that they do. When you say, do they have a right to return? Do they prove?
It's a legal category, as in any government.
Which is by their family history, their grandmother, their mother, and there are many aspects of that.
I've read it. I think,
but I know that these are people who are Christian, and they came here, made aliyah. They had Jewish blood, Jewish history. They were Christian, Messianic, but they came here, and they were welcomed here.
And they were given full legal rights here.
Absolutely.
And a passport.
Yeah.
So clearly, it's not true that you invalidate your right of return by converting to Christianity. That's just false.
I'm not aware of that. I know that there are a number of Christians here. I go to church with Christians every week here.
Of course.
And
but do you have a right to come and say, I am an ethnic Jew, even though I practice Christianity, therefore I have every bit as much right to move into a settlement in the West?
The answer is no. Yeah, as far as I understand, you also, even if you've converted to Judaism, you can't even be like, I don't even think you can be Reform, right? Someone in the chat might correct me. Right? Isn't it like a specific type of Judaism? If you're a convert, if you went from Christian to Judaism, then you have to be Orthodox, no? Or am I crazy? I thought it was only Orthodox, but I don't know. If you want to be if you want to get citizenship, (2021) Israeli Supreme Court ruling individuals who have undergone reform and conservative conversion in Israel are recognized as Jews for the purpose of the law of return. Oh, okay. So 2021, yes, you have to be Orthodox, but it says here, the Instant Independent says 2021 Israeli Supreme Court ruling allows individuals who have undergone reform and conservative conversions in Israel are recognized as Jews for the purpose of the law of return. I guess before 2021, you had to be, maybe before 2021, you had to be Orthodox, but now you don't have to be.
Bank or into East Jerusalem or anywhere I want, Galilee, anywhere, because I'm returning to the land of my forefathers. I have a legal right in the state of Israel, even though I've converted to Christianity. You're saying that's true?
I'm saying I know people who've done it. Now, can I tell you what the law specifically is? I'm not sure.
Well, it's really
I'm a
significant.
Christian. I don't have any Jewish roots, so therefore I cannot quote you the law. If you want me to do that, I'll look at it.
Well, it really matters because you're saying, in fact, people in the United States are being called anti-Semites, a lot of them, including me, because they somehow don't believe that Israel has a right to this land.
Do you think Israel has a right to this land?
No, you haven't defined what the land is, and you haven't defined who Israel is, so I really don't know.
It is the land they're living in now, the borders that they have.
The borders are moving. The borders,
Yeah, the borders moved literally this year, so fuck you mean the borders. Bitch, Israel took over 50% of the Gaza Strip. Now, does that mean that's a part of Israel now? Like, are we recognizing this annexation? Is it legal now? You can't. Israel's the one country that you really can't be like, oh, well, the borders that it has now, because it might change next year. Never in the appropriate direction, unfortunately.
have moved in the last year.
What do you mean the borders have moved?
Well, they are the 1967 borders. I'm including, the
East
West
Jerusalem and
East
Judea and
Jerusalem.
Samaria.
What are the borders of Judea and Samaria?
Well, you basically take the Jordan River, and it's west of the Jordan River to the Mediterranean Sea, to the Lebanon border. And Israel did have control of the Sinai. They gave that to Egypt. They had control of it.
Right.
They gave it away in 1979 in the peace agreement.
But, okay.
So
whatever you call it, the land that was taken from Jordan in 1967, you call it Judea and Samaria. There's a significance to that I don't fully understand. I'm not against it. I don't
the
really
biblical
know what it means. It's the biblical.
terms. 80% of the Bible happened in Judea and Samaria.
But we've also established that the Bible gives Jews the right to occupy the land from the Nile to the Euphrates. So I'm very confused by why we've shrunk the land and why we're
Israel has shrunk the land. They have made that decision. Okay. That's why they gave away Gaza. They gave away the Sinai.
Now's the part
They've
for
given
the
away
real
a lot
question.
of things.
Abram's descendants are the ones who have the right to have this land, correct?
Yes.
Okay. Why don't we do genetic testing?
Bro, what is this conversation? Oh my God. This is, I know there's people in here being like, this is cooking for like the religious, like right-wing Christians, but like, you know what would cook? I think just like a 5-minute compilation of people defending Israel on television, okay? I'm not even kidding when I say this. Like, just do a fucking Rabbi Shmuli's greatest hits compilation. I swear to God, there is no better conversion technique of taking someone from like the most pro-Israel person of all time to the most like pro-Hamas person of all time than a 5-minute Rabbi Shmuli greatest hits compilation. Okay, they will come out of that being like, how can I evade the State Department to offer like to offer munitions to the Palestinian resistance personally? I will go to prison. I think this is so much. I want a Bible verse rap battle. Bro, it's this or anti-Semitism to get the right-wingers on board. Tragically, that's all hitting for these ghouls, not because the other argument won't work, because right-wingers won't make them.
on everybody in the land and find out who Abram's descendants are. It's really simple. We've cracked the human genome. We can do that. Why don't we do that? Would you be against doing that?
I have no idea what that would prove. I mean, maybe it would be.
What do you mean? It would prove who Abram's descendants are and who has a right to live here and who doesn't, according to the theology that you yourself just explained. And so I'm very confused as to why we don't do that. If you believe the theology that you've just explained to me.
Would we do that all over the world?
Well,
and everybody
this is the only country in the world that you've said has this covenant with God, that this people have a moral and legal right to the land.
What about people who convert to Judaism? Would they have a right?
Well, you've just said.
I mean,
that
there are
it's
converts
not,
to Judaism, so
you just told
they
me,
can make Aliyah. They may not have.
You've just
DNA.
told me that it doesn't matter. You told me moments ago, I'm trying to keep track, that it doesn't matter whether or not you believe in God or whether or not you practice Torah Judaism or Rabbinic Judaism, which is something else that I don't even know if we should, I don't even know what that means. But it doesn't matter whether you're, quote, a religious Jew or not. What matters is that you are part of the Jewish people to whom God gave this land that extends from the Nile to the Euphrates. And so if you believe that, wouldn't you want to know with a burning passion who those people are? And because of science, we can now know who those people are. So why aren't we finding out?
I guess you could propose a DNA test for everybody who comes here, everybody who lives here. But the point
I'm comfortable with secular nation states where none of this is done on the basis of blood. I'm uncomfortable with that. I'll just say that.
But there are people who may not have bloodlines, but who have converted to Judaism. Are they going to be able to live here? Are you going to kick them out?
By your standards, they can't live here. Because you just
never
told
said,
me
no.
they have a right to live here because God gave them the land because they're the descendants of Abram.
They're the descendants of Abraham. But if they're the spiritual descendants of Abraham and they've now decided that they're converting to Judaism, then do they have a right to live in Israel?
Well, there's a whole legal literature in Israel on that question. And my understanding is that certain types of modern Judaism qualify a person and other types don't. Is that your understanding?
Oh, yeah, they're getting
I don't believe that people converted, and I could have this wrong, but I know people who face this personally, people. I don't believe people who've converted in a Reform synagogue have the...
He's talking about Tony Double Cert. My goat, Tony Two-Tone, Tony Double Snip, not Orthodox, not allowed. They got to fix that up.
The right of return. I don't think that is, because I know people who've married into Jewish families and they find out they don't have the right of return.
He's talking about fucking Quentin Tarantino.
So that is perplexing to me.
Yeah, I know, my experience is a little different than yours. I know people who have definite Jewish connections, family relations, but now they're Christian. Some are not necessarily practicing Jews. They're not, they're more secular Jews, as you've discussed, but they come back here.
Okay, I'm not against that. I'm just wondering, since you began this conversation by asking me, did I think they had a right to come here?
Yeah, that's what
my question
Zionism
was, on what basis do they have the right?
Yeah.
And you said because God granted it to them.
And I also said because that there should be a land where Jews can live in peace and safety.
And I asked you what a Jew was, and you couldn't answer it. You said
I didn't
it partly is religious, but doesn't have to be. It's partly genetic, but it doesn't have to be. And so that you can see why I'm confused.
I think I was very clear that being Jewish is an identification either through blood or through faith that you're Jewish. It may be that you're a blood Jew, but you don't necessarily practice Judaism, just like there are people who say they're Christian, but they don't do a thing to demonstrate what Christian
There are a lot of bad Christians, including me some of the time, a lot of the time. But I don't have a right to real estate on the basis of my claim of Christianity.
You don't have a right to real estate if you're talking about a specific parcel. But if you're talking about a land, I think what we're talking about is
that's all I'm.
Yeah,
all I'm saying.
And there was a
like a
designation
Warhammer raise
to the family of nations of the world that there would be a Jewish homeland.
Why did you ask this to Bernie? That's what some chatters want me to do. to have this conversation with Bernie Sanders as though he would agree with any of this shit. Bro's going to everybody but you.
Hey, they see.
Oh, Big Gav on Midas Touch. Yeah, he'll go to any outlet but this one. He'll go to any outlet but face a constituent, okay? And not just any constituent. Like, I pay a lot of fucking taxes in this goddamn state. This is so fucking boring. Just this part of the talk. I do like when the hogs fight each other, but this part, what is a Jew question, is so stupid. Yeah. Same question Adolf Hitler also asked. And two guys that are descendants of his ideology with minor differences are having this conversation. The age-old question, once again, what is a Jew? Oh, man. I mean, this is the biggest...
You've appealed to Genesis. Genesis
This is the biggest takeaway. I was like not fully paying attention when he said this, but...
says it's Abram, it's pre-Abraham, it's Abram, receives from God the news that his descendants will inherit the land, and you tell me as the theologian if I'm getting this wrong, but from the Euphrates to the Nile. I think that's right. And that would include like basically the entire Middle East. That would be the Levant, so that would be Israel, Jordan, Syria, Lebanon. It would also be big parts of Saudi Arabia and Iraq. It would be, I mean...
I'm not sure it would go that far. I mean, it would be a big piece of land, but here's the point.
It would be a lot of places that are now countries.
But this particular area that we're talking about now, Israel, is a land that God gave through Abraham to a people that he chose. It was a people, a place, and a purpose. We can look at it that way. Christian Zionism, I want to go back because that's where we started.
I'm not going to let you off on this because you have said it 3 times that God gave this land to this people. And so it is entirely fair for me with respect to ask, what land are you talking about? Because I just read Genesis 15, as I have many times. Mm-hmm. And that land, I think it says, from the Nile to the Euphrates, which is, once again, basically the entire Middle East. So God gave that land to his people, the Jews, or he didn't. You're saying he did. What does that mean? Does Israel have the right to that land? Because you're appealing to Genesis.
Yeah.
You're saying that's the original deed.
It would be fine if they took it all.
Yeah, Mike Huckabee cares more about the Greater Israel Project than he does about Americans. He cares more about Israel than the majority of American Jews do. Like, this isn't to say that there aren't a lot of Zionist Jews, okay? That's not what I'm saying at all. But to this degree, this is like a very unique... This is a very unique obsession. Okay? Where is your data for that statement? For the second statement, that he cares more about Israel than like the majority of American Jews do, there are very few people on the planet that care about Israel this much. That are outside of Israel, I mean. Like, this isn't to say that there aren't American Jews who care about Israel this much. There are Kahanis, there's Miriam Adelson, people like that. But like, they're going toe to toe with this guy. I mean, also, here's my proof. American Jews live in America. If they cared about the greater biblical Israel as much as Mike Huckabee did, they would live in Israel. Like, they're not living in America because they're like, ooh, I'm going to do, inside-outside techniques of like infiltrating America to use America like a flesh puppet. No, they live in America because they're like, yeah, what the fuck would I live in Israel? You can still be a Zionist and not want to live there. Jeffrey Epstein was a great example of this, right? Jeffrey Epstein straight up was like, yeah, Israel fucking sucks. I'm not going to lie to you, big dog. That shit is kind of ass. But also, I will still work for the nation state of Israel. Like, human beings are not monolithic. I don't know how else to describe this. It's just like a fundamental thing that I believe. Okay? And it's just the truth. And yet, people oftentimes, when it comes to like identities outside of their own, have no capacity to understand it as such. Okay? They think like, oh, well, you know, maybe there's some secretive purpose here. No. I know plenty of Zionist Jews. They live in the United States of America. They would never, ever in a million years live in Israel. They visited Israel. They have family in Israel. They would never live in Israel because they love America. They like America. They like living here. So for many of them, I think they're fake fans, if we're being real. That's what I think. I think they're a little bit phony with their support, where it's just like a thing, a rallying cry, a way to organize, a way to have a sense of community. Okay? That's it. And they just can't shake it. Some of them are obviously more aggressive with their support. But plenty of self-described Zionists don't actually care that much. They've just been trained into thinking that like this is important for them. And this is like, you know, this is their organizational principle. This is what they organize around. You can just say Adam Friedland. We all know. Yeah, Adam Friedland. Oh, that's funny. Yes, that's who I was referencing. You've made this comparison a million times. The main difference between Huckabee and ISIS is that he's a rich white Christian. Call it what it is. Supremacist, fundamentalist, violent religious extremism, justifying conquest through lawless terrorism and perpetual war against Middle East's entire civilian population. Yep. He's white ISIS. My family member who said between living in New York City as a Jew and living in Tel Aviv with bombs flying overhead, they'd rather live in Tel Aviv with bombs flying overhead, yet their ass is still in America 3 years later. Yeah, exactly. Very common attitude where I know this from my friends who are anti-Zionist Jews who have this conversation with their relatives, where they'll be like, you know what the toughest place to live in the world as a Jew is right now? The Upper West Side. And it's like, that's not true. And you know that's not true. Okay? Please stop with this nonsense. You know that's not true. Like you didn't even choose like a somewhat anti-Semitic area. You just chose the least anti-Semitic area. Like, you're so insane. But also, if that was the case, you would be in fucking Israel, but you're not. You're not. Because you like living here. You're an American citizen. It just offers a little bit of spice into your life. God, the hysterics, man. The hysterics, dude. It was so... Post October 7, like that first couple of months was extra insane. Remember when the doxing trucks came out on every college campus? I could not believe it. I was like, I can't. Are other people not seeing what I'm seeing right now? Like, how are we just? Will you hide me? Remember the fucking "Will you hide me" campaign? Amy Schumer losing her dang mind. I mean, more so than usual. Yeah, it's easy to make the Israel-ISIS analogies as both fantasize about establishing ethno-religious supremacist states that stretch across the region. But while ISIS is a fringe minority scorned by everyone, Israel has the institutional backing of the world's most powerful states. I also agree with that take as well. I'm glad that the the Israel-ISIS comparisons are coming out. Who could forget Beverly Hills area posting images of kidnapped victims on every light post? I know. Oh my God, with like 1 million fucking cameras on it too. And God forbid you touch one of, God forbid you like sneeze in the direction of one of these fucking hostage posters. You're going to jail, big dog. We're putting your ass on the timeline. New York Post. Remember New York Post like putting it on the front page of the two ladies that like ripped one of the hostage posters? And they were like, nah, we don't give a fuck. Beast mode. Ay. That was like a big conversation that people were having at the time. It's like, is this the most anti-Semitic incident of all time? I don't know. Maybe the existence of Israel is the most anti-Semitic incident of all time. Yeah, would you hide me?
And let's get to that point, because I think you've taken us on several.
Okay, there's definitely one more anti-Semitic incident than the existence of Israel. Second, let's say is the second most anti-Semitic incident ongoing. Okay, there is one that was more anti-Semitic.
Trails here, and I'm not sure we can follow them all. But is there a reason that the Jewish people that represent, and I want to get back to this because you didn't let me finish a while ago, they represent 0.2% of the world's population. In the entirety of the world, there are about 16 million Jews total. And 8 million of them live here. The rest live mostly in New York or South Florida and a few other places.
Okay.
So this is a small population of people.
Killing a Christian is
They
Benjamin
have
Netanyahu.
connection
Where are the
to this
9/11
land.
files?
Historically, biblically,
Do they?
yes, they do.
If Bibi's family, we know they lived in Eastern Europe. There's no evidence they ever lived here. He's not religious.
But
in what sense
ancestrally- but
how do we know
ancestrally-
that? Do you have his family tree? No, we don't.
Do you?
He doesn't. So no one does. That's the point.
But
So
if
how do
there
we
is-
know that he
but
has any
if they
connection
are
to this land at
Jewish,
all?
And if there has been a practice of Judaism and a connection to the language,
But
the
he
Bible,
doesn't-
the land,
His ancestors didn't. He doesn't practice Judaism in any rigorous way. His ancestors didn't live here. They didn't speak the language, and there's no evidence they ever lived here. So on what basis does he have a right
very
to be
much
here?
speaks the
Yeah, Bibi's not even Orthodox. He's conservative. Right? Wasn't Benjamin Netanyahu from Philadelphia, by the way? His family is not even Orthodox. I don't know if he LARPs now, but, you know.
language. He has fought for the land. His family has
I
fought
feel
for
like
the
you're
land.
dodging a
No, I'm not
very
dodging.
obvious question, which is where does this right come from? And the
I've
reason it's
given you
meaningful
that
is
answer.
because there are a lot of people in the territory that Israel controls today, particularly in the West Bank, who, through genetic testing, we can know their families have been here for thousands of years. We don't know whether they practiced Judaism, whether they were Samaritans, pre-Islam. We don't know that. A lot of them we know have been Christians for 2,000 years. They
Bibi's not Orthodox. He's a secular Jew. He's conservative.
have less of a right to the land than someone whose ancestors, the only thing we know about them is they lived in Latvia or Poland. They're Eastern European. How does that work?
They're Jewish.
By what definition?
They're Jewish by their
But how do we know they have any
ethnicity.
connection
They're
to
Jewish
the
by
Jews
their
of the,
faith. They're
of the
Jewish
Bible?
by the connection to the language. Jewish by the connection to the Torah.
But how do we know that Bibi, specifically Bibi's ancestors, ever lived here? How do we know that?
I'm not sure if I understand your question.
How do we know if the Prime Minister of Israel's ancestors ever lived?
Maybe I could ask you, how do we know they didn't? I mean,
Well, it's on the basis of the claim that they did that all kinds of things happen. People are displaced. There's a money flow. I mean, it's a big question. A lot hangs on this. It's not some theoretical thing like, oh, you know, did my grandparents do this or do that? It's like, no. We have a right to be here because my ancestors were here. Okay, how do we know they were here?
I'm totally unable to process what you're trying to get at. It goes back, do Jewish people have any land on this planet that should be theirs
I feel that way about all peoples. I feel that way about Jewish peoples. I feel that way about.
Okay, then you don't mind them having this little
Is there any
land,
country? Let me
right?
ask you this bluntly: is there any country that European peoples have a right to exclusively?
I think they have attained their land through conquest. I mean, let's ask
Have
ourselves.
the Britons attained their land through conquest? No, they've always been there.
The Romans, the Greeks, we've had all these
let's
civilizations.
speak. Let's speak. Well, you could certainly say that here. The Romans controlled this, as you know, and they expelled
But they
all the
don't
Jews
anymore.
from Jerusalem. Amen. I don't want them to control it.
Hope not.
I'm anti-Roman. Okay, we're on the same page.
Okay.
But my question is very simple.
The fuck are these?
Is there
what is this
any
conversation?
European peoples that possesses the same right to their land that the Jews, including people whose ancestors lived in Eastern Europe, possess here? The Britons, we know, the British people, the Scandinavian people, the Irish people, their ancestors have been there for thousands of years. That's provable through genetic testing. Do they have a right to their...
Bro, they're having a fash off, dude. Who gives I'm gonna lose my okay. I'm sorry. This conversation sucked dick. Okay. You cannot convince me that this is like a really good combo. Like, there's some good parts in here. There's some good parts in here when he just like cooks Mike Huckabee. Apparently there's a part of the convo where Mike Huckabee literally says the IDF is the most moral military on the planet, more moral than the American military. That one's gonna really fry a bunch of motherfuckers. Okay, do you have that one? I can't watch the rest of this. Carlson just wants to get to the point by just agreeing. Does anyone have the other? Does anyone have the other clip where he literally, Mike Huckabee straight up says that the IDF is a more moral military than the American military? Like, listen, I am not a fan of the American military. Okay? I believe that the American military has done war crimes in every invasion that it is engaged in. And I believe that the American government has done war crimes that amount to genocide, specifically in Korea. Okay? But as far as like modern American military conquest goes, evil by every metric. But there is one military out there that we know of in the Western world that's Western adjacent, that like is funded by the American government and gets all the protection on the planet, that is definitely more evil. Normalizing conquest again? Wait, what? Normalize conquesting again? Oh, you're saying normalize conquesting again. Yeah. And that is the Israeli military. Like, let's be real. The Israeli occupying forces did a genocide. They are truly one of the most evil militaries in a long list of evil militaries. This entire conversation is worth the line where Huckster says it's fine if Israel takes over the entire Middle East. That line alone is God-tier value in boosting anti-Zionism globally. You were texting when he said it first, but that shit's going to go viral as fuck. I know. I also quote retweeted it as well.
Israel goes to links that no other country, including ours, goes to in the middle of an urban war. And yet Israel ended up with fewer civilian deaths in an urban war than any urban war of record.
You said you didn't know how many civilian deaths there were, so how can you say that?
If you took Gaza's numbers, Hamas's numbers,
you said you don't know what the numbers are.
We don't.
You just told me that. Then
But
how
I'm
can you
saying
say
if
it's a
you
lower
took-
number?
But if you took the numbers that they reported, which is like 50,000, 24, 25,000 of those were actual warriors. How many civilians? If you
I think
took
the
all of their
numbers
numbers,
range from 120
No.
to 78. Those are the ones I just read. I don't know if that's real. I don't know either. I'm
those
asking
are,
you.
Yeah,
You're the
and I'm
US
telling you,
ambassador.
those numbers I've not heard, have not read. The numbers that I think are more reportable are somewhere in the 60,000 range.
Where do those come from?
From the Gaza Health Ministry,
But
which
you
is
said those were
Hamas.
invalid numbers.
I think they are. I don't think that they're accurate, but I'm saying let's
You're
just
saying
assume
they're inaccurate, but they prove that Israel's doing a great job?
Let's assume that the most widespread numbers, the largest numbers that have been reported out of Gaza by Hamas,
Yes.
Let's assume they're true. That's what I'm saying. I'm not saying they are true, but assume they're true. Let's just take them at their word. Then you still have a lower number of civilians killed than in any urban warfare environment in modern history. Fact.
Is that a fact?
Yes.
What are you comparing it to?
To any urban warfare.
Name one.
Iraq.
Where in
Afghanistan?
Iraq? Where in Iraq? Where in Afghanistan? There aren't many urban areas in Afghanistan. I don't think there was any fighting in urban areas in Afghanistan.
Kabul?
I don't know. Were there pitched battles in Kabul over long periods of time? I don't.
20 years.
In Kabul? I don't.
Throughout all of Afghanistan.
But what were those rates?
You're talking about what are the rates there?
This is
The number of
objectively untrue, by the way. Like, there is no modern warfare equivalent of civilian to military casualty percentages that anyone comes close, for the record. What's his face? He's done like a lot of analysis on this. History Speaks? He's like an academic guy. He's always talking about it, and he's using History Speaks, and he's using like the most conservative estimates when he's talking about it too. It's not even like he's not even using like the Lancet study estimates at all. As far as like bombing, direct military conflict, like direct military kills, we're not talking about like sanctions and stuff, because America obviously cooks everyone else when it comes to like the full spectrum warfare. But these numbers, the very, very conservative estimates, are direct combat casualties. Okay. And as far as like direct combat casualties goes, with the percentage of children, the proportion of children among those killed by Israel is radically higher than all recent non-genocidal wars for which I can find data, as well as Bosnia, a genocidal war. It closely matches, however, two of the genocide listed here, the Nazi Holocaust and Rwanda. With the time frame and the number of children killed, well, not the number of children killed, but like the percentage of total violent fatalities, the proportion of children among those killed by Israel is radically higher than all recent non-genocidal wars for which we can find data on, as well as Bosnia, a genocidal war. It closely matches, however, two of the genocides listed here, the Nazi Holocaust and Rwanda. Okay? The percentage of total violent fatalities for children is 30%. Okay? 30%. In Bosnia, it's 4%. Kosovo, 9%. Afghanistan, there's no numbers on it. In Iraq, it's less than 5%. In Syria, it's 13%. In Yemen, the Saudi air war, which also is another, it was also another genocide as well, 16%. The second highest on this list that is like, is it a genocide? Is it not a genocide? You know? And if you look at the Battle of Mosul, it's 9%. If you look at the Russo-Ukrainian war, it's less than 1%. And if you look at the 7th of October attack on Israel, it's 3%. The only instance where it's either close to or exactly the same percentage is Rwanda and the Nazi Holocaust, looking at just the Jewish victims only. Okay? It's not a question. There is no question here. There is nothing. There's no comparison. No.
Their land exclusively.
Is anyone saying they don't?
Yes, of course. Yes.
Who's saying that?
No one will say they will. And I'm asking you, do they have that right?
Oğlum polis gibi vuruyorsun kapıya, amına koyayım. Yuh. O jacket benim lan. No, that's mine. That's my jacket. It literally says my name on it. Yeah, it says my name on it too. We have the same fucking last name, bitch. Anyway, Murat was just knocking on the door like the cops, like the police. Anyway, what the fuck? What? Oh, we were looking at this. Sorry, I clicked on the wrong video. There's also one more. Hold on. Sure. Oh yeah, hold on. Where is it? There's another one as well. I'm trying to find the other data point as well. Oh no, this is just children killed. Okay, if you want to look at women killed, okay, if you want to, the frick is happening, bruh? Bruh. Okay. I hate that we have the power scale atrocities that makes some people care about the current and preventable one and they're still resistant. I know. If we look at the... So we looked at the proportion of children killed, right? If you look at the proportion of women who are killed, History Speaks covers the Hosmer Shimmer, Box Loner cites Cast Lead and Protective Edge as models for how the IDF has conducted itself in current war. Among those killed in Gaza, the proportion who are women is 138% higher than in Cast Lead and 77% higher than in Protective Edge. Seems like something qualitatively completely different is going on, Hosmer Streamer. As my chart shows, the proportion of women among those killed by Israel dwarfs other recent wars, Syria, KSA air campaign in Yemen, Iraq, Kosovo, Bosnia, Colombia. This is despite the fact that Gaza, because it's such a high percentage of children in the population, has an unusually low percentage of women and men / adults in general. Okay? The only other, the percentage of total violent fatalities in the IDF assault on Gaza from the 7th of 2023 to the 15th of July 2025, note, unlike child deaths, no figure for women is available through December 2025, is 19%. Okay? 19%. And the only percentage that is higher is the 7th of October attack by Palestinian militants, which is at 27%. And that's also because the IDF has a female combatants as well. Like, which implies that obviously, like, you know, female civilians were killed at a high rate, but also a lot of female combatants as well. Just so you understand. So there is no comparison in general with any of these other, and these aren't even like, we're talking about violent fatalities. We're not even talking about casualties across the board. As this chatter correctly points to, it shouldn't be just children killed. There should also be children mutilated, maimed, dismembered, amputees, children with lifelong mental trauma. That's 100%. If you talk about children with lifelong mental trauma, that's 100% of the children in Gaza. Okay? But if you look at like the casualty numbers, which feature wounded, gravely, severely wounded children as well, the number obviously even skyrockets past that point. We're just looking at dead children that have been killed. Okay? It's fucking crazy. So when Mike Huckabee says such an insane thing that is so easily disprovable, you know, you got to bring this shit up. And this is like with the limited availability that we have to count this.
People who were killed into the tens of thousands. I'm asking you to...
I don't know the answer. I've never heard of any of this. You brought it up. You said the IDF has killed a lower proportion of civilians in urban warfare than in any urban conflict in modern history. I'd never heard that before. I don't know what are the controls for that. And you said, well, the U.S. military killed more civilians.
Would you agree that the real tragedy was that Hamas continued to force this war?
Hold on. You just again said that the IDF is more humane than the United States military. You just said that. You said in Iraq and Afghanistan, the U.S. military killed more civilians than the IDF did in Gaza. You just told me that. I never heard that before. And my question is, how do you know that? What are those numbers?
And I'm trying to explain to you that there were extraordinary efforts to keep
the numbers, do you?
I think they were tens of thousands. I'll get them for you.
Well, you brought it up. That's the only reason I'm pushing
you. But I'm wearing a flag. I've worked for a country, and you...
Do you? Do you, bitch? You're in the process of literally being like, the IDF is more moral than the American military. As an American citizen who is an American State Department employee, it's fucking nuts. I'm telling you, first of all, the dual loyalty trope obviously doesn't work with Mike Huckabee because he's not Jewish, which is part of the reason why I feel no need to restrain myself and can unload on him to the best of my ability as much as I want, because the whole anti-Semitism argument doesn't fucking fit here. But also, even then, it's not dual loyalty, it's single loyalty. He doesn't give a fuck about America, bro. That's crazy. He doesn't care. He doesn't care about America at all. He literally said, listen, I got this flag I'm wearing it right here, Tucker. And I'll tell you what, the only nation's military that matters is Israel.
Pretended or alleged that somehow I'm not loyal to this and that I'm criticizing my own country, and I'm not.
They did a better job than the U.S. military in Iraq and Afghanistan. And I said, what are the numbers? And you said, I don't know. So on what basis are you making the claim that the IDF in Gaza spared more civilians than the U.S. Army and Marine Corps did in Afghanistan and Iraq? Why are you saying that? Like, on what basis are you saying that?
From the conversations that I've had with the people who fought there. And I don't have the exact numbers for you.
This whole thing is 100% a psyop because anti-Semitism helps Israel justify its existence. Huckabee would not have accepted otherwise. No, Huckabee doesn't give a fuck about fomenting anti-Semitism or whatever. Dude, I'm telling you, I think Mike Huckabee would literally, if there was a 1% chance that it would trigger rapture, and Mike Huckabee's like, if you hit this button and you nuke Washington, D.C., where there are, American Jews living there as well, okay, as well as all of the other Americans, he would not even hesitate. He'd be like, 1%, I'll take those odds. What do you mean? I wish Dems would lie like this. Most we get is a strongly worded letter. I don't think anti-Semitism helps Israel as much as they believe it does. Well, they certainly seem to believe it helps them quite a bit because, they foment it pretty aggressively. It is pretty nuts. I've never encountered a person in the real world like that. I'll tell you that. Oftentimes I'm fascinated with a new type of guy, I'm fascinated with like new types of guys. This is like I've read about guys like this, you know what I mean? But I've never seen them in the wild. I don't know how I would survive that encounter. But on that note, I'm going to end it here today. Ladies and gentlemen, boys, girls, and MBs, that'll be all for today on the broadcast, on the HasanAbi broadcast, because I'm tired and my brother's here. I'm going to go hang out with him. There's more to come tomorrow. There's so much that I don't get to cover every day, but hopefully it was an informative and enlightening experience for all of you. Love you all, and peace.